Hi folks, Charlie here. This recording for the episode was put together a bit hastily, and so the audio recording is not perfect. You hear a fair amount of echoing happening, but I hope that won't take away from what we think is quite a fun look at these silly new cards. Enjoy! Hello, and welcome to the 7-Point Highlander set review for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. A set that is beloved by everyone, and no one despises its very existence altogether.
Not at all.
Not at all. My name is Charlie Myers. I am joined today by Mock Samba's #1 fan and staunch Ring 2 defender, Henry Fair.
Hello, it's me. I love Boros Legends and all other kinds of legends.
And certified brewer and Bluetron team captain, Lachie Cody.
Hello. I love Ninja Turtles. I'm not going to feel like throwing up looking at the pizza at all.
They're legends, Lachie. It's great.
All right, should we hop into it?
Yeah.
With everyone's favorite property.
I'm so excited.
Starting with Agent Bishop, Man in Black, which is 2 and a white for a legendary creature, Human Soldier. It's a 1/2, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, you put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. I think this card is very medium, but maybe has a home in Scales.
I actually think it's quite good, as much as I'm reluctant to praise basically any card out of this set. I do think that a slightly bigger Luminarch aspirant is probably good, in that I think the rate that you get power, because it's double for 1 more mana, I think you end up happy with the amount of power you've got out of the card a lot quicker.
Sure.
Like Luminarch aspirant,
Yeah.
you really want, you're paying 2 mana, you'd really want like 3 power out of the thing. This is just like a 3 mana 3/4 with no help at all as soon as you go to combat. Then after that, it's a 3 mana 5/6.
Notably, no. It is a 3 mana 2/3.
I misread the card.
Yes.
You need one other thing.
One other thing.
That is not that
in
hard.
terms
It's
of
not that
pure
hard.
rate, though,
Yes.
you are getting it. It's like you're getting an above-stated creature a lot quicker than with Luminarch Aspirant. Also, it is a card that gets bounced by Caracas, but it's also going to be played a lot in decks that have Caracas, so they can protect it. And if you have like a board with a bunch of, say, legendary creatures, then you start buffing them up. If your opponent tries to get rid of this source of kind of unlimited value, you get to Caracas it back to hand, replay it, you get the counters again immediately when you go to combat. Yeah, I think it's a lot better than Luminarch Aspirant. I don't know how much people play Luminarch Aspirant, so we'll see.
So the specific home I have in mind for this is the Mono White Legends deck that I think David Wales has been playing a bit of.
In Wollongong.
In Wollongong. And that deck in particular has a bit of a humans and +1/+1 counter sub-theme. It's not just doing Mono White legendary things, it's also doing like Thalia's Lieutenant things. It does like Luminarch Aspirant. It plays Erdnan Dramoka Warrior, which is 1 and a white
Is that
for
from
a...
the jump start?
It sure is.
Yeah.
It's a legendary creature, human warrior. It's a 2 mana 1/1. It enters, put a +1/+1 counter on a thing. Whenever you attack, target attacking creature with a +1/+1 counter on it gains first strike until end of turn. If it has 2 or more +1/+1 counters on it, it gains double strike instead. So all you need to do is go 1 into Erdnan into Agent Bishop, and you will attack with a huge double striker on turn 3. And you really want your 3-drop to curve nicely, because the problem with that deck currently is that the 3s don't really also play into the counters theme. I'll also note this is a soldier that can be relevant. No one's tried soldiers yet, but like this card does have relevant synergies as a legend, as a human, as a soldier, and in counters. It could absolutely see play if you build towards one of those things, at least.
Yeah, okay. That leads us on to Continue, which is 1 and a white for an instant that says choose up to 4 target creature cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn, return them to the battlefield. So it's kind of like a brought back that's a sweeper protection. People keep talking about this card, but I don't actually think any of us particularly
I
see it as applicable.
There are a lot of cards in Magic that say creatures that were put there from the battlefield this turn, and people always, every time they get one of them gets printed, people go like, oh, this has all these combo applications, and they almost never see any play.
Yeah.
This is a pretty good rate on it. But I think being limited to 4 means those combos that are like, I sack my entire board and I bring everything back, might be limited by that.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
Rally the Ancestors loops from that old standard tended to be okay with like 4 things, and like you need a density of that impact of that effect to do it. But also, I don't think that style of deck is good in Highlander because you have to play a bunch of cards that are below rate. I do think it's also very funny to have the second card that we review be continue question mark. Just
Yeah,
like,
I would rather not.
The decision we made.
The turtles.
Yeah. All right. I don't think this card's that playable.
Me neither.
but Maybe
People
someone will
keep
break it
talking
in
about
some
it.
way.
Well, that gets back any permanent.
It's honestly best with fetch lands,
Yeah,
and
or
this
like-
doesn't hit fetch
like
lands.
what is
Okay.
it?
Only
Yeah.
creature means like, I don't know. If it was any permanent, maybe you could do some egg stuff. But I just think this card
Yeah.
stinks.
Alright. Brings us to Koya, Death from Above. She's 2 and a white for a 2/1 flying legendary creature, mutant ninja bird. It says when this enters, exile up to 1 of the target creature. At the beginning of your next end step, you may pay 3 and a black. If you don't, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control.
Do you want to take this one first, Charlie?
I mean, yeah, I'm pretty interested in this for taxes, just being essentially a legendary Flicker Wisp. Like, you lose a power, and it obviously can only hit creatures. I think the pay 3 and a black is very much flavor text.
Yeah.
I think if that is ever coming up, you're in such a board stall where it is kind of irrelevant.
It is awesome with 8 mana in your
Yeah,
cards.
exactly. I could really go off.
Yeah.
But I think just being able to crack us a Flicker Wisp again and again is probably enough. So we'll see. The 3-drop slot is very competitive. But I will also note, Henry, it's a legendary bird.
It is a legendary bird. It can combo in an Amber Ascendancy. No, you should not do this. I do think if you had like Aether Vial or some way to sneak it in, like with Kinseer Sentry, for example, that makes the 4 mana application a lot more like likely to come up. Like-
or Felia, for example.
Yeah, blinking it
That
with your
stupid
Felia.
dog is everywhere.
So maybe that comes up. But I think you very much have to play into the synergy, the very small parts of synergy in taxes to get that to come up.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I mean, yeah, I'm certainly, as someone who plays against taxes a lot, kind of dreading this card because I'm just like, not another Flicker Wisp. That card's already really good in your deck. So, yeah, I don't know, seems good.
That brings us to Leader's Talent. Lachie, do you want to take this one?
Sure, yeah. Leader's Talent is a 2-mana class. Classes are back, which is cool. I'm generally a fan of classes. And it says, for level 1, whenever you attack, put a +1 counter on target attacking creature. Which is kind of similar to, is it Ranger class? From
Ranger class.
from
D&D.
D&D. And then
Also-
level 2,
Also, Innkeeper's Talent.
and
Oh,
Innkeeper's
yes.
Talent.
That's,
Yeah, that's probably a more relevant one. And then level 2, whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had a counter on it, you gain 2 life. That may as well just be completely blank. And then level 4, whenever you cast a spell, put a +1 counter on each creature you control. Now that one is pretty strong. But it is 7 mana before you get to that effect. Also, very notably, the fact that you have to attack to get the counter is a big downside compared to Innkeeper's Talent, which just gives you the counter each combat. So,
And has it's a much more relevant level 2 that's much
Yeah.
cheaper.
and a better level 3 as well, I think.
I don't
It turns into a counter doubling effect at level 3, like a doubling seed.
Oh, I remember now, yes.
So then you're kind of guaranteed getting value, even if you have nothing else. I mean, if you have the level 3 in this, you're probably going to be happy with it because any spell gives you counters, but
Yeah, so
Innkeeper's Talent really does everything you want on its own. I think this is a fair bit worse, and already Innkeeper's Talent is really just kind of a scales card, so don't know if this is particularly playable.
Yeah, you'd need to be in a non-green deck that's happy with counters and attacking. It sounds like the Humans Legends counters deck thing, but that deck I don't think wants a non-creature too. I think that you really, really need your creatures to be doing all of the things that you need here, so I don't think you want this.
No, I don't think this card's particularly good.
Next up is Leonardo Cutting Edge. Henry?
Alright, Leonardo Cutting Edge is 1 and a white for a 1/1 legendary creature mutant ninja turtle. It has Sneak for a single white mana, Lifelink, and whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on Leonardo. So this is a very good Ajani's Pridemate. Lifelink on Ajani's Pridemate, very powerful. And the Sneak cost is incredibly cheap and plays well with Soul Sisters effects. Because you generally, especially like Ocelot Pride, which will make a bunch of 1/1s that will make it difficult for them to block all of your things. Notably, plays very well with Ocelot Pride in that first strike lifelink means this will get the counter before damage happens. So like, this is very, very good specifically if you are doing exactly what this wants, which means you are playing the Soul Sisters deck, which I know there's a person in Melbourne who's been playing, but we mostly know May's version of the list, which is very strong. I don't remember if that list is also the Legends list or if that is a separate thing, but this also goes in, I think, Wars of Legends, which similarly has a Soul Sisters type thing going on. But that is a bit more, I don't know if the synergy density is there.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent to me, because it's almost exactly the same text as Aerith Gainsborough from Final Fantasy, except it doesn't have the dies trigger, and that one's also 3 mana, which means that one's a lot more, I think, combo applicable, whereas this one is much more for just, you can do sneaky lifelink stuff. It does the Cauldron Ballista
Heliod
thing is still there and still available, but I think this is honestly much better as just a Najani's Pride mate with lifelink, which is inherently kind of powerful.
Yeah, anything that snowballs in and of itself and is pretty cheap, usually a pretty alright card. I can see us seeing playing, those Orzhov Shells. Even just if you're on a deck that is in on Guide Pride and maybe also has like Halia and a couple other incidental ways to gain life. I think once it's got the first couple counters and it's just a big lifelink creature that is making itself bigger every turn, you're probably pretty happy with it.
Yep,
I'd say so.
Next, Leonardo, Leader in Blue. Henry, I think you should take this one.
Sure, that's fair enough. So this is a single white mana for a 2/1 legendary creature mutant ninja turtle. It has sneak for 3 white, 5 mana. When it enters, if its sneak cost was paid, creatures you control get +2/+0 until end of turn, and 1 white, it gains first strike until end of turn. So I do think that this is a strong enough 1-drop legend to replace, to be a slight upgrade over an existing one in Boros Legends. The threat of activation on the first strike means that you're very regularly going to get in for 2 damage on turn 2, which you're reasonably happy with. Probably replaces like Basri, which that deck's usually on. I think that Basri is not very good. The sneak cost won't come up often, but when it does, it will be very, very strong. Especially if you build into the sort of tokens variation of Boros Legends, which has become more possible recently. I don't know if any people have been leaning much into it, but the last variant that I was playing classically Voice of Victory and Karizev and Ellie from The Last of Us Secret Lair as well.
I hate that
deck.
I hate that deck.
I know. But you could also build further into that and play Adeline. This is a bit weird with Delny, but also a bit great with Delny. The Delny, you won't get the blocks, but you'll get double the sneak ability.
But the sneak ability is closer to flavor text than it is how you're evaluating the card.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because 5 mana is.
Yeah, you don't want to get there. There are definitely... It definitely happens, especially if you're on the variant of Legends that plays a Sol Ring, because you want to be able to move your equipment around. So it's not impossible. I suspect you also, if you're playing this, want to maybe you end up playing more in the flyings, in the Flyers way. Maybe you want the uncommon Momo, for example, or just attacking with Spider Woman, for example. But I think mostly you're just gonna be bouncing one of your temporary tokens with it.
Yeah, I have I suppose a rant I want to go on about sneak and how the sneak ability is templated, but we probably have about 10 more Leonardos to get through, so I'll save it for a card where the sneak ability is more relevant to how it's costed.
I think we will.
Sure.
I think our next card is another sneak card. It is Leonardo's Technique, which is 3 and a white for a sorcery that says return 1 or 2 target creature cards, each with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, but you can cast it for its sneak cost of 1 and a white.
Can I take this card?
You can take this card.
This card is awful. Okay, let me begin the rant about Sneak. So, Sneak, for those who may not be familiar, is templated similarly to Ninjutsu, where as an alternate cost, you can return an unblocked attacker you control during the declare blocker's step, and then you cast it for the sneak cost, which is usually less. few important things. Number one, you cast the spell.
Yes.
The biggest upside of ninjutsu is that you are putting a thing into play as an ability. It's uncounterable. The reason that ninjutsu is templated this way is because returning like something that is on the board that is an unblocked attacker is a bad thing to do. It is like you are giving up damage in some cases, and you are giving up, material on the board that you spent mana for. It's like when your opponent bounces the thing you control to hand, that's bad. You don't want to do that. In this case, you're doing that for a card that they can then just counter, and then you've set yourself back a huge amount. You've bounced your own thing, and they still get to counter your spell, so you're down the card in hand anyway. I am very, very low on the cards that require sneak to be good as part of their cost.
Yes.
I also just think unearth effects in general are pretty people rate them very highly. The reason unearth itself is good is because it can cycle when it's not relevant. This card does actually nothing in your hand if you don't have cheap creatures already in your graveyard.
Yeah, I mean, no, it is like unearth already requires you to have some setup of a creature in your graveyard. This requires you to have one or realistically two creatures in your graveyard that it can target, and a creature that could attack and not be blocked, which is so many steps for, look, 2 mana to return up to 6 mana value worth of stuff is very good, but that is a lot of setup to try and get the upside of the effect.
And you could do all that setup and then they still daze it. And then you're just down a card.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. I still really like a lot of the sneak cards, mostly because I think that the puzzle of trying to build a deck where that cost is as low as possible is very interesting. Mostly, that sneak cost in Legends, on the last card we were just looking at, you have a bunch of tiny cards that you're okay with paying, you're okay with swapping out if you're getting enough of a payoff for it. And there are interesting spots where that payoff has to be very good. I think I agree, even though I thought this card was quite cool, that this payoff is probably not good enough, especially with the amount of incidental graveyard hate in the format. But I think that there's interesting stuff going on. I'll also note, and because I haven't said this, I think that the reason Sneak is like this, you see, it's so they can put it on instant sorceries. I think it's so that you can not have Commander Ninjutsu. It's so that you can sneak in a legend from the command zone because you are casting it, so it hits by command.
Hadn't thought of that. That is probably why they did that.
Yeah, that's probably why it's like this. It's Commander.
Yeah,
and then as with every issue.
And they're like, we can put those into the sorcery, so it's not only Commander, but it's a bit Commander.
Alright. Next card. Lita, Little Orphan Amphibian.
Shall I read this? Okay, so Lita is 1 and a white for a 2/1 legendary creature, Mutant Ninja Turtle. She has Alliance. Whenever another creature you control enters, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Pull a +1/+1 counter on Lita. Create a food token, or scry 1. So, I actually don't think this card is very good. I think that this does... it could be a role player. It's got some flexibility, but it's very similar to, Gala Greeters, which is a card that has seen no play. It has 1 more power than that. It has legendary synergy, which is nice. It makes a food instead of a treasure, which I think is worse.
Oh, definitely.
I will say, the fact that it says food is the only reason it's on here is...
Oh, the food mid-range people.
Yeah.
Just a little shout out for those food mid-range people.
I think the food mid-range player's got enough.
I do think the additional power is relevant over Gala Greeters.
True.
As much as I do think making a treasure is better, I do think...
treasure, notably.
Yeah. The fact that you can't crack the treasure immediately, you can crack the food, and it's 2 power, so assuming you have no other follow-up, you're happier with a 2 mana 2/1 than a 2 mana 1/1.
Yeah, I suppose this, the command Highlander All-Star Astrid Path is not dissimilar here in that it does get bigger, it does look at card selection, and it does make food tokens, but it does ask quite a bit more of you than Astrid Path, which I'm not going to explain. You can Google that one. I think it's funnier.
Next is Prehistoric Pet. Is 1 white for a 1/2 creature dinosaur ninja. With this creature can't be blocked by creatures with greater power.
Skulk.
Or Skulk. And 1 and a white tap. return another target creature you control to its owner's hand, activate only during your turn. Notably, not as a sorcery.
Very relevantly not.
So you can definitely still do a lot of protection with it. But this is mainly in here as a somewhat relevant 1-drop that can bounce your stuff with good ETBs. And white tends to have a lot of good creatures with ETBs.
It can bounce your Solitude or Grief in response to the Evoke Sack trigger.
Oh, that is very good.
I have not thought of that.
Huh? Yeah.
That is interesting.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So you're only down 1 card when you do that. You're effectively paying 1 and a white for a Swords or a Grief. It's pretty good.
Yeah. I wish it had more relevant creature types.
Oh, yeah.
That because Dinosaur Ninja does not really mean it will see much play because of that. And like I don't really know how many decks really want a 1-drop that does this.
Yeah.
Even Taxes is kind of like the 1-drops you would rather be a bit more aggressive than a 1/2 that recurs value
I
over
could
time.
see a version of Moonshine maybe wanting this, a more control-y version of that deck. Like Bouncing Fury in particular, like is a very relevant board control tool. If you just turn any red card and 1 and a white into a Fury, is pretty good. And that deck has like a decent number of ETBs, or you can build it to have a decent number of ETBs.
Yeah.
But I'm not super familiar with it, so I could be wrong.
I could see like a very grindy game where I know they keep bouncing White Orchid Phantom and just blowing up your
Ooh.
lands until you don't have basics left.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good.
I think it's the effect of returning a creature you control to your own hand is strong, and there hasn't been that many cards that do it at a comparable rate. So I could see it being good, but it does look a little.
There's the
Little
frog
bit
from, there's
funky.
the blue frog, or is it green from Bloomburrow? The
Blue Frog.
boot that returns. You can also has this almost the same text of you can pay 2 and bounce a thing to your hand.
Yeah.
Is that does it also draw cards when things
It
leave?
draws a card when
Yeah.
when a creature
I think
leaves the
this.
battlefield.
I know that's 2 mana, but this being in white is honestly more relevant
Yeah,
than
I
it
think so.
being.
Oh yeah, being in white much better than blue.
Yeah.
No, you're not getting a lot of value from evoking subtlety and recurring it.
All right. Next. Lucky, do you want to read this one for us?
If I must. All right. So this is Splinter and Leo, father and son. When Splinter and Leo enter, choose one or both. Each mode must target a different player.
So choose 1.
Yes, in this case, choose one. I can see very few instances where you will be giving your opponent this option. Target player creates a 2/2 red mutant creature token, or put a +1 counter on each other creature target player controls.
Okay, so I added this. The reason I added this is because this is actually the best rate for 3 mana put a counter on all of your things. Which I know is weird, but like the next best one is the United Front card from Avatar, the X White token spell. That makes a 1/1 and puts a counter on all your things, so it effectively makes a 2/2 and puts a counter on everything like this. But this has the higher floor of being 2 2/2s for 3 mana. That is a very specific thing that your deck will need to want in order to play this card, but it is a thing which a deck could want, and this is actually not a terrible rate if you do want that thing. It is like a thing you can Caracas to make a token over and over. It is a thing you can Caracas to put counters on your things every single turn if you run out of stuff to do. You need to be wanting all parts of this effect, but if you do, this is a very strong card.
I will admit, flickering it, targeting it with failure or something,
Yeah.
and buffing your whole team or churning out a bunch of mutants could be good, but the fact that it's just a 2/2 on its own, so it dies to pretty much anything.
Well, it's 2 2/2s on its own. It doesn't matter everything. You'll get a 2/2 still.
That's true. I think you'd need to have a lot of creatures on board before you want this over Agent Bishop, even from the same set.
Well, I think that's part of why it depends on what you need your floor to be. If your floor here is making 2 2/2s, right? So on 3, you're probably not using the second mode. You're probably making a second 2/2. But if you are on turn 4 or 5, once your hand is empty, then the +1 counter mode is a lot better. Especially if you're like you say with failure, especially I think is a very good one. You very much need your deck to be wanting these things.
Next.
All right, last Ronin's technique is 3 and a white for an instant with sneak, and this I like the sneak on for 1 and a white. It is an instant, and it creates 3/1/1 white Ninja Turtle Spirit tokens. If the spell's sneak cost was paid, they enter tapped and attacking. So very much a tokens card. It's a tokens card.
2 mana for 3 1/1s
Yeah.
is worth returning the thing to your hand, especially in a tokens deck where
Yeah.
the thing you're returning is probably a token.
I will admit, I think this card is okay, if only because 4 mana instant for 3 1/1 tokens is actually an okay rate that you're happy paying.
I'd agree. Like, end of turn, that when your opponent, you have like an Anthem on board, but they've otherwise killed your things, you pass them, sadly, they do their thing, and then they attack you, and you're like, oh no, and then end of turn, you make 3 2/2s and you kill them. Is like a very good line.
That's true. I'd just like to take this opportunity to point out another thing that is bad about Sneak, which is that you specifically need to use the Sneak during the declare blockers step. So you cannot do the trick you can do with Ninjutsu where
Let combat damage resolve.
let combat damage resolve, return it, and you can't save attacking creatures from removal, which is the thing that does sometimes come up where they'll declare blockers and after blocks maybe remove something because something else happens to combat.
So actually, they can. This can stay for removal because if they do the removal during the declare blocker step, you can respond to it with the sneak cost.
Little PSA: if you're going to use removal on creatures in combat after this set, do it after the declare blockers.
I think that's probably was correct beforehand anyway against blue decks. I would say black
Doesn't it go
decks.
straight from declare blockers to combat damage? Isn't this your last opportunity?
This is, but you can do it in declare attackers. You can kill attacking
before you
creatures
declare
before you declare
Yes,
blockers.
which is always what you would do to avoid ninjutsu anyway.
Yeah.
But in this case, you can't do it after damage or after in various.
One thing I
think is weird.
One thing I missed talking about Leonardo earlier that I just want to say is this is also the Senu step. This is when Senu comes into play. If you need an extra thing to return.
Moving on.
I think for future set reviews, we might need to set maybe a Senu limit or a Senu ban, because Senu will talk about Senu at every possible opportunity.
I'm honestly impressed that we got this far with only one Senu.
Yeah, how many? This is mostly all the black cards, right?
Yeah.
We went through them without mentioning. Only the second last black card.
I was surprised not at every legendary creature Henry was going, but when this is unlocked...
I mean, it is legitimately relevant for Leonardo since it has that throne of activation block thing. Like, it's actually relevant for the one-man Leonardo.
Okay.
Next.
Turtles Forever.
Turtles Forever is...
Still white cards.
I will say white is actually the most represented colour from the cards we have selected.
That might have something to do with the color that I played the most.
Potentially. I also added a lot of white cards, so who knows?
What color we play most frequently, Charlie?
Moving on to a card that I don't understand why it's here. Turtles Forever, which is 3 and a white for an instant that says search your library and or outside the game for exactly 4 legendary creatures you own with different names, then reveal those cards, an opponent chooses 2 of them, put the chosen cards into your hand, shuffle the rest into your library. Gifts ungiven turtles.
Yeah, so I added this one. I think this card's quite interesting. I don't know if it's good because I think it's I think it's very difficult to know for sure if it's good without without playing it. The main thing I'm interested in here is the fact that end or outside the game is a very interesting effect for any deck, and is a very powerful one with like cons specifically. So having having a wish effect that is always a draw to is very interesting. Like game 1, getting a pile of like your best 2 4s or like your 4 best 2s, and one of those 2s is Tomic against a deck that your Tomic is good against is like quite good, I think.
But
And also with instant speed, so you can do it without like.
But if you're getting a silver bullet, then your opponent goes put it in the graveyard.
Well, it goes to your deck. It doesn't go to the graveyard.
That is
Fully
why
missed
I
that.
think this card is not good.
Okay.
I initially read it and went, oh, maybe there's some really cool like gift style piles where you get a legend that reanimates things, you're always getting a combo. The other 2 shuffle into your library, that's terrible. The strength of gifts ungiven and intuition and other versions of this effect is that no matter what happens, you always have access to the cards because they're going into your graveyard, so you can construct deterministic piles.
Yes, so I don't think it does that.
No, it doesn't do that at all. Like, I initially looked at this card and went, oh, so you could get, like, Flage, and then no matter what, you're getting Flage. No.
Well, like, I think that we just sort of need to be okay with drawing your 3rd and 4th best cards. Like, that's normally pretty good if your deck is constructed with good cards in it.
What deck wants for 4 mana?
So, I think that in order for this to make sense, it has to be a legend style deck. It has to be one that is okay getting to 4 mana, and it has to have strong payoff through doing so. So I suspect this is a Selesnya Legends deck, which I don't think we've seen tried. I think that it is one that I've tried to brew a couple times, and looks like it's close to having legs, but it has the issue of there's no good green legendary ones. But after playing Amber Ascendancy, I'm like actually okay with fewer legendary ones if you're higher up the curve and making good use of the legendary synergies, which I think this is. I think this is good.
I do think like a Naya or Selesnya Legends deck could work.
Yeah,
I don't think this card is good and would go in that deck.
that is very possible.
Another thing is, we actually have quite a lot of effects that tutor for legendary creatures, or even just legends. There's already cards like Search for Glory, there's
Time of Need.
there's Thalia's Lances, which is a 5-mana creature. You know what? I'd rather play Thalia's Lances than Turtles Forever, which I think speaks to the quality of Turtles Forever. But the other thing about all those cards is they get exactly the legend you want, and not the third and fourth best legends you want.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it's something. It's a card I want to experiment with, but do not expect to be the best thing I've ever played or anything.
Okay.
Alright. Well, good news, Lachie. That is the last white card. And now we get to move on to blue. So would you like to start us with April O'Neil Hacktivist?
Okay. So April O'Neil Hacktivist is a legendary creature, human scientist. It's a 1/5 for 3 and a blue. And at the beginning of your end step, you draw a card for each card type among spells you cast this turn. I actually think this card is quite good, mainly because, unlike a lot of other kind of creatures that get you value over time, it does return the card immediately if it's not killed, because she'll go to end step and see that you cast a creature.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like that it's a 1/5, it blocks a lot of things, which the kind of decks that want these value engines will want. I don't know if it's impactful enough for that you would play it. I think when there are options like the Wandering that exist, it's pretty hard to look at a 4-drop that does no cards, but
I added this because it reminded me a lot of a card I really love, which is the Jeskai Creature Nar set from Target Dragon's Now that cares about the number of cards, spells you cast, but also requires you to discard your hand to draw. I like that, firstly, this is only one colour, and so nowhere near as restrictive as that Nar set, and also doesn't immediately return the card, unless they kill it.
and also having to discard your hand for that Nar set is a real cost, because often you're playing this in decks like combo decks or control decks where you are trying to kind of sculpt your hand over time, so you don't necessarily want to be ditching things to refill your hand.
Yeah.
You might be saving a sweeper or some combo payoff, so... And the fact that this lets you kind of build up a hand again by, as you play the game is good, but the 4-drop slot, and particularly 4-drop card advantage, is a pretty hotly contested spot in Highlander, so...
Yeah. All you need to do is hold like a 0-mana artifact to go alongside it, and you'll draw 2. Like it's like
the fact it works well with baubles, which are already some of the most powerful cards in the format, I think it has potential, but you're right, it is 4 mana, which...
It's a card I could see, people have sideboarded value engines before, like things like Palantir or Warthunk or whatever, for grindy matchups. I could maybe see April O'Neil in, maybe Amber Ascendancy or some Legendsy deck.
Yeah, if
Maybe I'd try it in Bluetron, but...
I wonder if an Academy combo deck would be okay with this. It blocks for ages, you can normally land it, play your Mox Opal into this on 3, draw 2,
Not being an artifact is tough, because there's already the card from Final Fantasy, which is a 6-mana legend that draws cards equal to the number of artifacts you control.
Well, that's sort of what I'm thinking, is, I really like in those combo decks to diversify your threats away from your most common hate cards. So, the fact that this is a card draw spell that, like that Final Fantasy card, doesn't die to your artifact hate, and also is easier to cast when artifact hate is in play, is, probably decent.
Yeah. I don't know. It's certainly interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if it sees play. I could see trying it in decks if I really feel the need for a way to refill my hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Interesting card.
Right. Next we have Bespoke Bow, Henry.
Yes, the Bespoke Bow, another card I added, is 2 and a blue for an artifact equipment with when this equipment enters, return up to 1 other target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. The equipped creature gets +2/+1, it has vigilance, and has equip 3. So the reason that I added this card is because this is a equipment that bounces a non-land permanent, doesn't say opponent control, so this is a tutorable equipment piece that combos with Displacer Kitten. You can tutor for this with your Stoneforge Mystic and your Cloud, set it up to, like, by just playing it and tempo your opponent for a moment, and then on the next turn, play Displacer Kitten, play a Mox Opal, bounce the Flicker the Bow. You need another.
I was going to say, don't you need 2 zeros to do that?
You need 2 zeros to do this, which is not too hard in a deck that is trying to do that.
Because the zero's on the stack.
Because zero's on the stack, so you can't bounce it again. So you need 2 zeros, but it's not too difficult to do that because you can play up to, I think, easily 6 zeros in that deck between Baubles, Mox, Jeweled Amulet, Lotus Petal. That's 5 there, and you can pretty easily find another.
Yeah.
Like Paradise Mantle. Like that. It needs, again, a very specific setup, but it's a setup that Ed has been experimenting with, and I do legitimately think has quite a lot to it, because just flickering the bow and bouncing your opponent's thing every single turn, non-land permanent bounce, as I found in Ascendancy, is a really good thing.
Yeah, I could also see just playing this on the Fair and Stoneblade decks. Like, it is a bit slow, but bouncing anything is really nice. There's a lot of equipment that remove creatures. At least a simulation Aegis is a comparable rate, but another thing too is this doesn't automatically equip like a lot of things, but +2/+1 and Vigilance does actually make a creature a lot more threatening.
Having played
it does start to clock things pretty quick.
Having played a lot of Mabel Heir to Cragflame, let me tell you, Vigilance on equipment is really strong. Like it's really, really good. It just stonewalls so much. So I do think this card has potential.
Yeah, I mean, we've been experimenting, you and I, Charlie, with like an Esper Stoneblade list that has a lot of value equipment and permanents to pick up and replay.
Yeah,
this
so the fact would be a slam dunk in now, I think.
Yeah, no, the fact that you could pick up your random card draw thing, play it out again,
bounce your Poet's Quill, play Poet's Quill again.
Pretty strong.
Pretty good.
Pick up, I was thinking more like something like Arkham's Astrolabe, but that works too.
That works too. All right. Next we have a card that I truly despise the name of, but is probably a good card. It is Does Machines. It's another class which is for 1 and a blue. The first enters thing is when this class enters, mill 2 cards, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards.
Just great.
Just sort of a, little card selection, fill your yard. For second level, which is another 1 in the blue, and when this class becomes level 2, you return up to 2 target artifact cards from your graveyard to your hand.
I do very good.
Yeah, it's very good. I like that the first ability fuels the second ability, so you kind of, even if you already have 1 in there, you'll almost certainly be able to get the second in there to pick up both. And then the last level is for 4 and a blue, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, put 3 +1/+1 counters on target artifact you control. If it isn't a creature, it becomes a 0/0 robot creature in addition to its other types, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, the same as the Tezzeret ult.
I think that is the same as the ult on Tezzeret.
Right. I'm so glad that they created new interesting text for these cards.
Yeah.
But I think that last level is not particularly why you're playing this card. You were mainly playing it for the card selection and then advantage of its first and second level.
Though I'll note that the third level is not irrelevant. Having in your artifact deck a non-artifact win condition is very powerful, right? The fact that this is an enchantment that does threaten to end the game as it goes along is very good when your opponent is energy fluxing you.
It's basically Urza Saga.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but I do think this card's really strong.
Yeah, I think that the text on the card is all very good, but I also struggle to think of a good home for it. Whereas, I think the biggest problem is you find out, it's strong that it's not an artifact, but also it's not an artifact, and in your artifact synergy decks,
there are so few
the non-artifact spots are very tight,
but I
and
think
it's very tough to find ways to fit them in.
But I think the fact that this first level explicitly gets you to a better combination of artifact on artifact, and the second level goes you up 2 on artifacts, means that when you actually play it out, it probably won't feel that bad. You don't, as long as you're not going so deep on non-artifacts that you lose out on density, even with looking at 4 additional cards, like, it should be very good.
I think if people experiment more with like an affinity style, like playing lots of cheap artifacts build, this card does go into that.
Yes,
I just think those are not the artifact decks that are succeeding at the moment, but
Yes.
maybe someone will kind of crack the like kind of low to the ground affinity shell, and this card will be really good.
I did brew up a blue-red affinity tokens deck and tried this in it, and it did feel very strong. It did consistently kill on 3 or 4.
Okay.
That was goldfishing on like pretty.
Assuming that you're not getting Brotherhood.
Assuming that you're not getting Brotherhood's End. Brotherhood's End is not real and kind of hurt you. The outside is your blue. You just have to blue blast it. It is fine for blue blast faster. So that's good, I guess. Yeah. So I think that there's something there. It's just very tricky to find the right balance for artifacts or not. I think this is a card that I know Ed is going to look at for Displacement Prism. It does find your cards through combos. It will be very good, I think, in the Welder Cam combo deck, which we'll get to. Because again, this gets you to your pieces and returns some of them to your hand.
We have Irma, part-time mutant. Henry?
The Irma Part-Time Mutant is 2 and a blue for a 1/1 legendary creature, human mutant shapeshifter. At the beginning of combat on your turn, she becomes a copy of up to one other target creature you control, except her name is Irma Part-Time Mutant, and she has this ability, then put a +1/+1 counter on her. So, I'll admit that this card is one that I don't really have a home in mind for, but I do think that this effect is quite strong. Being a repeatable changing clone is quite powerful. It does put a counter on itself every turn, so it does scale. If you play her after a haste threat, then she can have haste. And she is a legend, but can copy a legend without getting hit by the legend rule because she keeps her name, which is also relevantly powerful. So I think this card has a lot of very relevant strengths in a quite unique way, but I don't really know where to put her. And I just kind of wanted to discuss her because I think that this is a very interesting effect.
It does do interesting effects. The fact that it keeps the name is
so
kind of
you
interesting.
can't legend rule by making other copying other legends. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's something there, but
I think this.
I can
would need to check.
I can see the cogs in Lockie's brain whirring
I
at the
think
thought.
this might be a card that goes infinite with Metamai the Ageless, which is a card from Theros which attacks to make an extra turn, but Metamai can't attack during an extra turn. But I wonder if Irma copies the text box if it still has the rule that I wonder if it refers to one of those instances where it's referring to this card's name, or if it's specifically creatures named Metamai.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Either way, that card's 6 mana, and that is not happening in 7 points.
Let me look at this. When we get to green, there is the 2 mana Michelangelo that is a scales card as well, right?
Yeah.
If you play that one into this puts a counter on itself after becoming a copy. So you'll have 2 scales and it will get double effect.
Yeah.
And then you have 2 scales effects in play on your 2/3 curve.
That is kind of good. I do genuinely think Scales gets a lot of stuff from this set and might.
I'm pretty interested in the fact that I think this set is going to expand the colours that Scales has to be, whereas before it was kind of, you have to be really green-black or green-white. But I think this set adds a lot of interesting blue cards, but also I think means that you could be lots of colours. You could theoretically be like a 4 or 5 colour Scales list.
Yeah. I'm interested to see what people do with it.
Yeah.
All right. Brings us to Kitsune's Technique. 4 blue for an instant that says target opponent deals half their library rounded up with sneak for 1 and a blue. Now I sort of put this in here as a joke, but I really wanted to bring it in here because mill is not a thing in 7 points. But the reason that mill isn't a thing in 7 points is because we don't have the density of good mill spells. And we do, for maybe the first time in a year or so, have been given a new mill spell.
Look, I do think this is good in exactly mill. I imagine people in modern mill will probably experiment with this because you can attack with one of your crabs, and then if they don't block the crab, you get to do this.
Which is so funny.
It is very funny. I could see mill existing at 7 point. I think the biggest problem with it is you're opening yourself up to opponents getting value out of their graveyards.
It's very much
And the
Yeah.
effects that modern mill runs, like surgical extraction, are a lot worse than 7 point in a singleton format. But maybe someone will crack the kind of appropriate graveyard interaction suite, and there is value to milling people's one-off copies of things and then getting rid of them.
Plays well with Tameo. It's very easy to get the sneak cost with Tameo.
Yeah, that's true.
Not that you should play bad cards to make your good cards better. Not that this makes Tameo better. So, that's interesting.
I don't think anyone is going to cast this in 7 point anytime soon, but I hope they try.
I hope they do eventually.
Right. That brings us to Krang the Mastermind. Lucky.
I hate the art on Krang, but this card is good. So Krang Mastermind is a artifact creature for 6 blue. It's an Utrom warrior.
Ugh.
And has affinity for artifacts. So, you can cast this for just double blue if you have 6 or more artifacts. When Krang enters, if you have fewer than 4 cards in hand, draw cards equal to the difference, and it gets +1/+0 for each other artifact you control. Its base stats are 1/4. So, Krang is really good.
Yeah.
If you put it in your affinity artifact deck, it's going to draw you a bunch of cards to be huge and kill your opponent.
But it's
Kind of what I
Krang.
have to say.
But it's Krang.
But it's Krang.
And so I guess my question is, at what mana cost are you happy paying for this? Because obviously it's blue, it's 1 blue, but realistically,
if you're casting it for 3 or 4,
You're probably okay.
you're probably
Yeah.
pretty happy.
As long as you're drawing at least 2 cards.
yes.
Well, I think the thing is, if you're playing this in an affinity style deck, one thing that Academy decks, or just those kind of decks in general, are really good at doing is emptying their hand. Because you're running a bunch of 0 mana artifacts, you have a lot of mana. If you want to, you can deploy everything in your hand. You might not be getting the best value out of it, but if you deploy it all and then redraw up to 4, you're probably pretty happy.
And what this does is it means you have you I think there is absolutely the density of affinity draw spells now for 7 point to explore that effect and to explore that style of gameplay with the affinity going wide stuff and be happy with your game plan. If you get good at that style of gameplay, you may even be able to beat that Brotherhood's End that cannot hurt you because you will have the refills ready to go.
Yeah. Very important, it doesn't die to Brotherhood's End.
Yes, surely
Yeah.
it does
It
not die
dodges
to Brotherhood's End.
both modes on Brotherhood's End.
That's true. It's a good
Yeah.
point.
It's a huge creature. It's one thing with Thought Monitor is it's very good. It draws you cards. It is only a 2/2, so
Yeah.
It
you do normally need an equipment or something to make that a threat.
Yeah.
Krang kind of just does it all on his own. It draws you a bunch of cards, kills them.
Yeah.
Card is good.
Next.
Oh, wait, sorry.
One more.
Notably, a warrior for Seasoned Dungeoneer.
Moving on. Next is Ray Fillet, Wave Warrior. Henry.
This is. I believe it's Ray Fillet, Wave Warrior.
Why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about this 0/2?
Alright, so
I feel like I'm part of a prank where you trapped me in a room and you're making me look at these you're just let's just add every card in the set so that Lachie specifically is tortured.
So this is 2 in the
Look at-
blue for a legendary creature fish mutant. It's an 0/2, but has flying and evolve. Whenever a creature you control with a counter on it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Notably, not 1 or more. It's each creature with a counter on it.
Henry, I know you have a love for Cloudfin Raptor.
I love Cloudfin Raptor.
From Return to Ravnica Standard.
They added 2 mana to Cloudfin Raptor.
So it draws cards.
They added 2 mana to Cloudfin Raptor.
It's a 3-drop that requires you to do other stuff to be good.
But it's
And it has no stats. It rise to anything.
I think this is I'm very interested in exploring a version of Scales that is not heavy on the artifacts, and
Okay.
I really don't want to I want to build a style of that deck that does not die to the absurd artifact hate, and anything which card advantage, repeatable card advantage, this can snowball a game very quickly if you are building towards it. But I also understand it is a 3-mana 0/2 legendary creature that is blue and dies to Red Blast. So, it's fine.
Not just red, dies to shock.
Shock.
It's fine. Everything in your deck's gonna die to shock anyway. Like, they'll kill your 1 or 2.
At least most of them are 3 mana.
We get it off the screen. I don't know.
It's fine. We have gone from maybe the worst card we'll talk about today to easily the best card of the set. I think we could all agree.
Yeah.
Sewer Valence Can,
Yeah.
which is 1 blue for an artifact with flash that says when this artifact enters or leaves the battlefield, you may tap or untap target creature, and as 3 and a blue, sacrifice this artifact, draw 2 cards.
Goblin Welder goes infinite now.
It is a card that I look at and go, they really just threw this in to the common slot just to be like,
Yeah, I
for the combo, why not?
I feel like this is one of those cards that they just had sitting in the set file where like, oh, we can break artifacts at some point, and then they just were like running out of
Commons for the set.
commons for the set. They're like, put it in. The fact that it also does the same thing as a bunch of other good artifacts, is it Wishing Well?
Wishing Well. I was just thinking about Wishing Well. Yeah. From Third of Eldraine.
From Eldraine, yeah, where it's a 1 mana artifact, and it's also just the floor is it's a 4 mana draw 2 at instant speed, which is a perfectly fine effect.
5 mana draw 2.
No, but like assuming you're gonna deploy it at some point early, and then at some point you can crack it for 4 mana and draw 2 cards. Because you'll probably run it out earlier in the game if you have some way to get value, or if you fail the combo.
And the fact that the primary way you'll be comboing with this is with Goblin Welder. The primary way you'll be comboing this is with Goblin Welder. And Goblin Welder doesn't care if this is on the battlefield or in the graveyard.
Mhm.
So you can sack this to find your Goblin Welder later, and you'll be fine because you'll just know that your combo piece will come back to the battlefield.
You can also use this just in combat to untap your Krang so that you can eat an attacker, or to tap down their blocker to kill them with Krang. Like, it does just have fair application that will kill your opponent in a fair game plan. If you are playing this in a deck that can kill your opponent that
Yeah,
way.
I could very much see a situation late game where your opponent has a couple blockers, you play this, tap down 1 blocker, crack it, tap down another blocker, swing in for lethal. The fact that it can add instant speed for enough mana, tap 2 things down, and draw 2 cards
Yeah.
is really strong. And also, 5 mana is not that hard when you're in a Flareon Academy deck.
Absolutely. I think this card's really strong.
Yeah.
It's interesting to try and break it with Engineer as well. That requires a lot more pieces. Or exactly Crime Novelist, a card that is not playable. But maybe it's
Oh
playable.
my god, I haven't thought about it. Yeah.
Yeah, Crime
No, I think...
I've got some brews, but I'll leave that for later. I have ideas of how to use Crown.
Okay, oh yeah.
Excellent.
Excited to see that.
Yeah, certainly will be brewing with this card.
That is the end of the blue cards. So our first black card is Armageddon. Armagon, Future Shark. Lachie.
Why do I get these?
It's going
This
in
is 8
order.
mana.
Yes.
Yeah.
But read the text.
Okay, Armagon is an 8 mana. Right, okay. Shark Horror Mutant with Flash. When it enters, destroy up to 3 target creatures. This costs the same mana as Archon of Cruelty.
And destroys 3 creatures when it enters.
Archon of Cruelty destroys your opponent.
It is a reanimator target. Is the reason we are talking about it is it is a new thing, big thing to reanimate. We are not obviously looking at hard casting this.
No, I know.
I could just... Portal of Phyrexia answers different things to, like, Spine of Ishtar,
That's true. But I don't know. It has to target. There's a real advantage to the fact that Portal sacks, so it gets around things like Hexproof. I also think there are plenty of black creatures that come in and destroy stuff. Most of them with better rates, or they draw you cards, or they do some additional effect. If you really need to clear a big board, I don't know, like the Massacre Worm or some other edict effect, I would be very surprised if this sees much play in 7-point or really any format.
I could see this seeing play in 7-point if you have a meta that exactly demands this effect. Like, it's one of those things where this effect is unique in amongst, like, these creatures. Hitting 3 things is more than all the other things that can be, more than anything else hits. Like, if you are playing against, like, a metagame that's full of, like, I'm going to say, like, Mardu Initiative or something. A deck that, like, doesn't go super wide, but doesn't go super tall and hits you with a few bodies. Like, that's very much, like, a metagame where having a reanimator target that answers, like, 3 medium-sized things is very useful. But it's very much metagame dependent. And otherwise, you have stronger individual card quality cards. I agree.
Next,
Oh yes.
Dimension X Pizza Saw.
Yeah.
Henry.
Yeah, love this guy. It's awful. It's 3 and a black for an artifact creature, food alien mutant. It's a 2/1. When this creature enters, put 2+1/+1 counters on target creature. When you do, destroy up to 1 target creature with mana value less than or equal to the number of counters among permanents you control. 2, tap, sack it, you gain 3 life, each opponent loses 3 life. That's the psychic damage if you play Dimension X Pizza Saw, what that is. So I actually don't think this card's great, mostly because that enters ability has a reflexive trigger, which means that it can be answered by removal. If you when this enters, you put 2 counters on, say this one, and then they remove Dimension X Pizza Saw in response. You don't put the counters on the thing. You don't get to destroy anything. So like this card is actually quite fragile in terms of getting the impact you want from it. It has the upside of, when we get to the green cards, being tutorable by the food tutor card, which is not nothing.
It's not nothing.
It's not enough yet, I think, but it's not nothing.
I do think it is still a card that could see play in some Scales variant, right?
Yes.
Like, obviously, look, Scales being blown out by removal is a tale as old as time.
True. Just all in, honestly.
So I think, even though this is 4 mana, being able to destroy something is very powerful, and in the Scales deck, it effectively reads kill any,
Yes.
kill any
I will
creature
note,
in the
it does say counters among permanents you can
Oh,
play.
yeah.
So if you have things on an Ozolith, or on, I don't know, you could play Dark Depths, and then
It's
it
very
immediately
funny
kills
with
a thing
Dark
with Dark
Depths.
Depths.
Yeah.
I think, look, it's an interesting Ravenous Chupacabra in that it has a bunch of synergies with counters and food, but I think at the base rate is pretty poor in that you're always getting kind of 4 mana worth of value in that you get this creature and you're destroying a 2 mana thing. So
Yeah.
you're kind of getting like
You're getting a 4/3 with the
you're getting a
fail
4/3
pushes.
with it, fail pushes or a bit narrower than that because it
Yeah.
might not kill like a 3
Yes.
or something.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I could see it being very good in the decks that has synergies with, but I think the rate on its own is a bit low and it's a bit vulnerable to removal, as Henry pointed out.
Yeah, I think this card it's one of those things that does actually get better the more food that are printed, because like when you get to the food shooter, like when you have a bunch of things that you have a toolbox. I love a toolbox, and this is a good card to have in that toolbox.
This is for you, Capers.
Yeah.
Alright. Next we have Game Over. 3 black for a sorcery. It says destroy all creatures. This spell costs 2 less to cast if a player's life total is less than or equal to half their starting life total. So 5 mana, Wrath of God Damnation. It's not very good. 3 mana Wrath of God Damnation.
That's quite good.
It's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Like, look, we already have Toxic Deluge, that is sort of the premier sweeper in the format, I would say. And I think probably for decks that may want a second sweeper, which there aren't a ton, this is probably another good option, because I think at the point where your life total is less than half, and you can cast this for 3 mana, it very often means you can play it for 3 and then hold up 2 mana worth of other stuff as well, whether that be replaying something to the board or holding up a counter spell or anything like that. Whereas, a 4/5 mana sweeper just means that if they do anything on the next turn, you usually, a bit slow to respond.
Another thing too is in Eternal formats, if you want to get your life total low, you really have the option to. Like even 7-point decks can probably are running some amount of shocks, so you can
As the world's number 1 Cecil defender. Yes, getting to half your life total is not as hard as it seems.
Yeah. So I could even see like I don't know, maybe like an 8-point Grixis deck that wants to run this as an option in addition to Toxic Deluge. It's pretty easy to.
I mean, notably, works really well with Toxic Deluge if you need a second sweeper.
Yeah. But even just like it's pretty easy to play this and then deploy out a 1 or 2 on the kind of board you've freshly cleared. It's interesting.
I'll note one very funny interaction with this card compared to Deluge. If this gets airbent by Ang, it costs 2 less even while airbent, and you can just recast it again for free if you have met the condition. Which is like a very niche thing, but that does come
Ang
up.
does see a fair amount of play.
And Ang is explicitly very good at protecting a board from getting wrathed, usually. And, like, if you airbend and Toxic Deluge, you have to pay the life again. This is, like, would fully blow that line out, which I think is quite interesting.
Neat.
Yeah,
Alright.
cool.
Next, we have Rat King, the Minister.
The Minister.
Lachie.
Okay, Rat King Verminister is 1 and a black for a legendary creature, Rat Avatar, and it has the ability at the beginning of your end step, if a permanent left the battlefield under your control this turn, create a 1/1 black rat creature token, and then put a counter on Rat King. Then it can sacrifice 3 rats to return a creature card and all other cards with the same name as that card from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Tapped.
So, tapped. The bit with that is that you run Rat Colony and all the
Relentless
other
Rats.
Relentless Rats.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
don't
then
do
you
that.
get to sacrifice 3 rats and do that.
Don't
I
do
don't
that.
think we're doing that in 7th
No.
point. But the fact that if you build up enough rats over time, you can reanimate a relevant creature is pretty strong.
Notably, you only need this to trigger twice because it himself is a rat.
And it doesn't say up.
True.
So you can theoretically play this on 2 with your fetch land, trigger it next turn, trigger it some other way, still in end step.
Yeah.
Return the thing, which is very powerful. But even without that text, what is effectively a 2-mana 2/2 that comes with a 1/1 that keeps
bad.
snowballing over time. Revolt is, as anyone who has ever played Fatal Push knows, very easy to trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fetch lands, baubles, just creatures
Failure.
dying in combat.
This card plays very well with Ocelot Pride.
True.
Yeah.
You get to make cats and rats.
Yep. You can stack the triggers in such a way
Yeah.
that this trigger results first. I'll note one very important anti-synergy. This card is an avatar. You cannot pick it up with Overlord of the Baelmerk. That will come up in 7.
Yeah, this is I think a card that would see a lot of play in
In Overlord of the Baelmerk decks,
decks.
I
Yeah.
think this is another reason to kind of be on a package of running, baubles, fetch lands, maybe some other ways to sack. This Moonshadow, Stalactite Stalker. There's a whole kind of package now of cards in black that want to trigger Revolt or Void or whatever the effect is.
Yeah.
I think it's very strong. It's very easy to trigger. I
Also-
imagine this seeing a pretty good amount of play.
I'll also note that that's reanimate ability. It does make the thing enter tap, but it also is not restricted to your turn or sorcery speed. So you can hold it up and do it on your opponent's end step and then untap and do whatever you want.
It's also quite nice, like, not necessarily protection, but like the fact that if they go to remove this and you have the 3 rats, you can just sack itself and the rats to bring something back.
Absolutely. I think this card's very interesting.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of play to it too. Like there's lots of interesting ways you can use it and trigger it.
This card's really fun to play with and against, I think.
Yeah, I think it's just
A good design, and the name isn't so obviously Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that I hate it on principle.
War Minister is actually very funny to say. I
Yeah.
enjoy saying
It's a good pun.
no big fan.
Yeah.
Maybe the one card I really like.
Oh, we're only halfway through, I think.
Yeah. All right. Next we have Shredder's Technique.
Ah,
Henry.
yes. So Shredder's Technique is 2 and a black for a sorcery with sneak for a single black. It says destroy target creature or enchantment. If an enchantment was destroyed this way, you lose 2 life. Explicitly, I've added this one. I know there are many feeds of one type of, like not many, but a few feeds of one type of effects to destroy a creature or enchantment. This is notably the only one of those that can be cast for a single mana. So I think this is relevant in terms of a way for a black deck that can't otherwise destroy an enchantment to get out from back to basics.
I
think I would much rather. Sorry.
Yeah, I think this sort of is emblematic of the issue with sneak cards. Is that they need to be in decks that can reasonably sneak them, and I think black decks that don't have access to other enchantment removal, is very few and far between that also want to, like, maybe there's a black aggro deck in the format that I actually think is probably underexplored as an archetype generally. But I think there are very few instances of decks that cannot naturally destroy an enchantment and also are able to sneak this.
I think this is a consideration for literally May's Rakdos Madness deck, which currently I think this is a difference philosophically between how May and I build decks. May's deck plays a lot of basics explicitly because of, I think, back to basics, and I love my utility lands. And this is the kind of thing where, like, if I were building the deck the Magnus deck and the way that I like to build decks, it would be much weaker to back to basics, and I would love to have access to Predator's technique. And I would prefer to be weaker to back to basics and have access to an answer than to be not as weak into back to basics and not have to play the answer.
I mean, in that case, that deck also plays Blood Moon and makes the moon in the sideboard. So
but that's
the
different.
basics are a choice with that.
Sure, but there's a bit of a difference between like that's just so that you can cast your black spells onto the moons, rather than like back to basics is a much rougher card to play through than the moon effects, I think.
But even then, in an aggro deck, I think I'd much rather have Feed the Swarm and not have to return one of my own creatures to hand and just pay one more mana. Because you're probably paying that mana in redeploying the creature anyway.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, I just really don't like Sneak. I just don't think that you were very happy sneaking a thing to get... The discount in this case, I don't think is particularly huge. And getting a 1 mana discount at a cost of something you probably paid 1 mana at least for.
Yeah, and there's some significant risk there in terms of, especially against a back to basics deck, where if this gets countered, you're now down the creature you were beating them down with under back to basics. So, like, yes, that's fair.
Yeah. Oh, look, has the ability to see fringe play. I don't know if people end up playing it.
I'll also just note that 1 mana removal is good, even if you are sneaking. Like, and it does hit a creature, any creature.
Yeah.
So, like the floor on this card, I think, is not nearly that low. So I think this card is a good option.
Sure. Alright. Brings us to Splinter's Technique.
Right.
3 and a black for a sorcery that has sneak for 1 and a black, search library for a card, and put that card into your hand, then shuffle. It is probably another tutor that will get pointed because all the bad tutors get pointed.
Okay. Literally earlier today, I thought of a place where I think this card is good. You've heard of Flood Moon. You've heard of Valley Flood Caller. Can I sell you one? Valley Flood Moon, a Demir hybrid combo deck that uses back to basics and the Valley Flood Caller combo, which would really like a tutor so that you can get your combo piece. Plays evasive threats that can get through, that you are happy bouncing like Baleful Strix, and if you don't have the combo pieces, can just go turn 1 Tameo, turn 2 attack, sneak this, get your back to basics, turn 3 back to basics then. I think that line of sequencing is legitimately a possible powerful line. And so I think that this card might have a home, but you very much have to be playing that same hybrid combo mid-range space where you have a thing you're happy getting in the same way that, like, in Emperor Ascendancy, I'm happy Enlightened Tutoring for the One Ring whenever I don't want to get a combo piece. And this card could see play.
I think there will be very niche hybrid creature combo decks, because you do really, really need creatures that are evasive. Maybe I could see a build of Thoracle that has, like,
Plays like a more tempo game.
more ammo, maybe like spend some points on Cameo, Baleful Strix.
Plays like Fairy Mastermind.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Return the Snapcaster.
I don't know if you'd have the points there for Snapcaster, but
yes.
yeah, maybe something like that. But I think in general, this card's going to be pretty fringe because you do need to be a deck that has cheap evasive creatures and is all in enough on combo to want to play a DT that returns a creature to the hand.
Yes. I agree.
Next, we have Super Shredder. Lachie.
Okay, Super Shredder is 1 and a black for a legendary creature, mutant ninja human. It has menace, and whenever another permanent leaves the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Super Shredder. Starts off as a 1/1. This is a pretty, I think a pretty scary threat, and looked a lot better before Moonshadow kind of came along and ate its whole breakfast. And it is Moonshadow, but it costs 1 more mana now.
And it's legendary as a human.
It has some upsides compared to Moonshadow. I think obviously it grows a lot faster theoretically with the fact that your opponent's stuff triggers it. And that you can, still find ways. I think it's easier to find ways to grow this later in the game compared to Moonshadow, whereas Moonshadow as a top deck in the late game tends to be pretty bad. It tends to just be a 1/1 or maybe a 2/2.
I do think it's good that Ephemerate grows this as well. Like, I also think you're probably pretty happy with your slightly bigger Moonshadow in the decks that want Moonshadow, a 2-mana huge evasive threat is still very good. I think it's a little bit worse, but I think people are still going to play this card and be pretty happy with it.
Yeah, it's always worth noting in 7 point that you probably shouldn't discount a card just because it's worse than another card, because density and duplicate effects on unique things is very useful in a singleton format. So I think this card it's not dead on arrival because of Moonshadow, but it is definitely more narrow than it might have otherwise been.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that, again, it's like you get to put this kind of package of like permanents that leave the battlefield and ways to sacrifice things and flicker things a lot with effects like Rat King, Minister, and Moonshadow, and you get to kind of get more value out of including that package, where it feels really bad if you're like, well, I'm going to run these 2 baubles for Moonshadow, and then they're kind of like fine but very replaceable cards.
I think
the fact that you're getting extra value is really nice.
I think it'd be interesting to try this in like Wars of Legends as well, but like a more counters and more humans focused version of that.
I just think most aggressive black decks that are running a bunch of fetches and flicker effects should probably
Mono Black Aggro. I'm a believer that the deck can do stuff. It just needs.
Are you two going to try this in Wars of, do you think?
I don't think so. I don't like Moonshadow in the deck, and
But importantly, this is very similar to Servondum, where permanents leaving.
I actually do think this is better than Moonshadow in the deck.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I do want to try it. There are certainly I'm more interested in Rat King personally from this set than I am for Super Shredder. I am a little worried about playing a 2-mana 1/1 menace.
I mean, if you wasteland or strip mine them, it gets 2 counters.
It is pretty good. Yeah.
That's true. I do love ending the game quickly, but it is just kind of a big idiot in taxes.
Also, it's basically Cozzy's Trickster, where they don't want to fetch into it because it grows your creature.
Or One-Shot. It's a more modern day reference.
I like Cozzy's Trickster. I guess One-Shot's alright.
I wonder if this card's good in Jund.
Probably.
It's probably pretty good in Jund.
They're certainly making a lot of permanents leave the battlefield. The fact you can remove your opponent's creatures and it grows, also very strong. The more I talk about it, the more I'm like, yeah, this does get big off like pretty much any way that you play a game of Magic.
Yeah.
Particularly in a mid-rangey deck. Most things you do are going to end up putting a counter on the Shredder.
I had forgotten about the fact that this triggers off opponents as well. That does change its valuation a lot to really wanting to be played in a more interactive deck than Moonshadow, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's always the question with a vanilla creature, although in this case I have menace, but where it's like, how big does the rate have to be before it's like, you just gotta play this thing?
Yeah.
I think for this, it's like 3/3 is good enough, 4/4 is great.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to play this if it was not consistently a 4/4, but
I reckon it'll get there. I think
consistently
it'll
a 4/4
pretty
when it's not
consistently
killed.
get there.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, interesting.
Okay. Next is Swift Demise.
Swift Demise, not the card I added. It's 2 and a black for an instant. Swift Demise deals 1 damage to target creature, then destroy each creature you don't control that was dealt damage this turn. So this is also another 3-mana kinda wrath. Its baseline is 3-mana murder, but it is not too difficult to play this in combat in a way that will kill your opponent's entire board if you have, say, a bunch of rats from Rat King, or a bunch of cats from Ocelot Pride that you are blocking with. You do it on your turn after they block some of your chump attacks, do it on their turn after you do a bunch of chump blocks. Like, this card can quite easily swing a game in your favor, I think. Being instant's very nice. Being only single black's quite nice. Admittedly, a card you have to build towards to make good, but very strong if you do make it good.
I wonder if, because like you absolutely can maneuver in a way that this blows people out, but I wonder if that is enough to play essentially like murder at the base rate.
That's fair.
I do think you only need to kill one other creature for you to be happy playing this card.
Yeah, I guess like a Bowmaster's trigger or just chump
Ocelot
blocking or
Pride, First
something.
Strike.
Ren -1, deal the damage, and then Swift Demise, kill 2 things.
Yeah.
Those are all good. Like those are all cards that see
you're
play. I just don't. Am I main decking this? I probably am not.
But
that
also-
happy main decking
Yeah.
murder. Am I going to sideboard it? I'd probably rather sideboard another sweeper.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It is a very cool design. I think it's very interesting, but you're right. I don't really know where it's gonna.
Look, I could be totally wrong, and you are always getting the 2-for-1, and it blows people out. But
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to experiment with this card in anything. But I'm interested to see if anyone manages to
I
get value out of it.
suspect its best home is gonna be like probably Jund, where you're happy for just more 2-for-1s and you have a decent ability to get that random 1 damage off of like Ren or like for Minister. Or like Slimefoot and Squee making the extra 1/1 and all of those like little dorks you get from like your wrist. I think that deck has the highest chance of getting the 2-for-1 and also likes the 2-for-1 the most. So I think it should see experimentation there, and I'm pointing it out largely because I suspect the Jund players will not have seen it. Because it is a card from the commander deck.
That makes sense.
I was going to say because they can't read it, but that works.
Yeah, okay, sure.
No.
Is that
I
your-
love you, Jund.
Would you say your
Please keep
patience
playing
is-
Jund?
Well, you say your patience is wearing thin.
I would certainly say my patience is very thin. How many more Ninja Turtle cards to go?
Okay. Next we have Casey Jones, Jury Rig Justiciar. 1 and a red for a 2/1 legendary creature, human berserker with haste. It's when Casey Jones enters, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an artifact card from among them, put them into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So it is sort of the red version of Ingenious Smith from the Dungeons and Dragons set.
Yeah.
But obviously with haste and extra power, and doesn't grow over time. Seems good for artifacts, aggro kind of thing.
Like I got into this format playing a like red-white trinkets aggro deck, which did play Ingenious Smith. I found that card very frustrating to play, just because when it missed, it felt really bad. Mostly because like you really needed to. It felt like you really needed to play a 0 alongside it, so it was a 2/2. And if you didn't get to do that, that felt very bad. I do think that this one, as a 2/1 haste as the floor, is much better for that style of deck. I think the legendary is also very relevant and a good thing for this. Like, it is actually useful to be able to Caracas bounce your own thing for card advantage when that thing is a 2-drop. Any bigger than that, and it becomes quite bad on your mana. But you do need to really be heavy on artifacts to hit stuff consistently. I forget the exact numbers. I sent them earlier today. I think there's something like 22 plus, like 24 even, and like I think you need like 26 to be hitting 90% of the time. 4 is just not a lot of cards you're looking at, and it's quite easy to miss, which does mean that you become quite weak to all of the artifact hate, and like Brotherhood's End will kill you on one side or the other. So like, I think this card is very much a fringe playable role player if you are building towards that style of deck, and that's a reasonable thing to do, but it's going to be a bit rough.
I know there was seen a couple people playing Boris Hammer Time recently. This card seems pretty good there, particularly if you can go like Cigar's Aid into play this, pick up a hammer or other cheap equipment,
It's nice that it's a
immediately
haste
get it into
creature.
play.
It's nice that it's a haste creature for that deck. So
Yeah.
even if you're playing it later, the fact that you kind of have a thing to equip the hammer to that can attack immediately. is
Yeah,
very good.
and you're probably more okay with missing when you have such high roll as finding the
Yeah.
hammer.
Yeah.
So you don't need that much of the density.
The kind of B plan of that deck is just be an aggro deck and attack them with creatures, so it's kind of fine there anyway.
Yeah, I do like it there. I do like it there.
You're right. Friends.
Mhm.
Gungala.
Gungala?
Gungala.
Gungala.
Lucky.
Casey Jones Vigilante is a red 3-drop for 1 red. It's a legendary creature, human berserker for 4/3. When it enters, you draw 3 cards. At the beginning of your next upkeep, discard 3 cards at random. I have seen a lot of people quite excited for this card. It's really interesting, where I think it's quite bad on 3 in most decks, because you're going to draw 3 cards from the thing you just played, and then not be able to do anything with it, and then discard all your 3. Discard 3 cards. But I do think it's very good as a late game top deck in an aggro deck, and I do think it's very good in specifically Rakdos Madness,
Yes.
which is probably happy enough with discarding a bunch of cards at random, because some of them will be Kitchen Imp or
I
maybe
think
like a Root Waller or something.
this card would be a total absolute slam dunk if it had Ancient Tomb mana.
Yeah.
If it was 2 and a red and not 1 red, I think it would see a ton of play in aggro decks.
Yeah, I think I agree with
At
that.
1 red, it really is hard to power out, a bit quicker, and I think, look, it's still very powerful. It is still a 3-drop that says draw 3 cards.
Yeah.
There are other ways to break it or not break it, but take advantage of the effect than to play discard chaos as well. Like, if you have a bunch of instants, and you can respond to the discard trigger in your upkeep now that you've untapped by casting, like, a Bolt Pop.
But it's also just playing this with 5 mana on, later in the game, and you draw a land and 2 1-drops, or, a 0-drop or whatever. It is not unlikely that you can just use those cards in the type of red decks that want this.
Yeah, it's just a bit weird in that, like, you're probably not happy on 3 playing this unless your deck is really built to use it.
Yeah. And
It
then
reminds me
at
of...
the top end of an aggro deck, surely you can do probably better than this. You
Yeah.
play a Pyrogoy for a Headliner Scarlet.
I do think there is some interesting play. It is a top-end card that gives you cards as opposed to kills your opponent.
Mm.
But most of the time, you probably just want to kill your opponent.
Yeah, just kill them is very good plan.
I just have the thought of, like, this card doesn't have any keywords or anything.
No.
This feels like a Magic card from, like, 15 years ago.
You're telling me
Yeah.
Goon Gala is not a keyword?
No, but, like,
The
it
thing
is
is, the
where it's
card-
like, it's discard at random, it
Yeah.
doesn't have any keywords. I feel like this is a 2020, 6 Magic card. Why doesn't it have
I'll tell you what it
haste or a
reminds me
keyword?
of. Is Twiddlestorm All-Star Ideas Unbound.
It is ideas unbound on a creature.
Yeah.
This just feels like from that era of Magic cards. Like, the fact that it's discard at random, too. You don't get to choose what you discard.
What's more 90s than Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
I guess so.
When did Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles start? It was in the 80s.
80s, but it is the 80s, but
Yeah. Interesting.
Alright. Next. Gungala. Next, we have Cool But Rude.
Cool but
Henry.
rude. 1 and a red for a class. Level 1 is whenever you attack, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. Level 2 for 1 and a red. Whenever you discard a card, this class deals 2 damage to each opponent. And level 3, also for 1 and a red. When this class becomes level 3, search your library for a card, put it in your hand, then discard a card at random. Shuffle as well in there. So it's gamble on the 3rd mode. So I talked to May about this because obviously Rakdos Madness. May is quite low on this. She's not playing Monument to Endurance in her deck at the moment. This is kind of a second one of those. Largely because, this is a conditional card for, that accumulates value and damage over time when you're already doing the thing you want to do. And the thing that you're already trying to do should kill them.
So,
that said...
I agree. I don't think this is for May's deck. I do. The fact that that second level does not say 1 or more, and the fact that it is any card you discard, means that I was just like, Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
I think any or Bizarre, it's crazy with Bizarre.
Artist talent
Yeah.
is pretty crazy. If you
know.
just want to deal 2 every time you cast a non-creature spell.
I have seen the person who plays the Grixis Madness deck with Bizarre is quite high on this.
Yes.
I think their name is Kate, but I haven't met them in person.
I just think there's so many ways to, with that level 2. Like, the main thing with level 2 is it is 4 mana over 2. Granted in stages, you can play it on 2 and then have it level up on turn 3. But, once you get the level 2, it has the potential to do a crazy amount of damage. I don't know what the best shell for it is.
That level 3 is also not nothing, right? It's a free
good
card. No, not mana-wise, but it is kind of just a free effect. To
That means
tackle
you
this
can.
card.
That means this card can find Echo of Eons and put it in the graveyard.
Yeah.
Which
Or
is
better.
very-
Well, maybe not better. It can find Runehorn Hellkite, which is Echo of Eons for 6 mana, but it is a Wheel of Fortune,
So
not a
you
shuffle.
discard your hand.
True. That's better. Yes.
Yeah. That is kind of a combo. It's very mana intensive, but it'll find you a Wheel of Fortune to let you discard and draw
Yeah.
7 and deal a bunch of damage.
And enchantments aren't the easiest to remove in our format.
No.
People can do it. Prismatic Ending's obviously a card,
But honestly, if you're out of white or green, it's pretty hard to deal with enchantments.
yeah.
I don't know. I definitely see this card having a lot of potential.
I agree.
Alright. Next we have Improvised Arsenal. Henry.
Yes. So Improvised Arsenal is 1 and a red for an artifact equipment. It has equipped creatures you control. The equipped creature gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control. It says Goongala on on the art. It has 4 and a red. Create a token that's a copy of this equipment and equip for a red. So this goes in the, I think, Is It Affinity deck alongside Krang and like a bunch of affinity token makers. As like additional cranial plating. The hard part is making use of that copy ability, which I think is very interesting. Like you could use it as an outlet for your Solarian Academy, but not a ton because you need the red for each version of it. The most interesting thing that I came across playing with this card and goldfishing with it is interacting with it in an artifact deck that is playing VV, because VV cares about its power and makes mana equal to its power and makes red mana. And then you can use that red mana to make more improvised arsenals and equip them to VV.
That is kind of crazy.
Which
Yeah.
is pretty cool.
I also think just another cranial plating that equips someone is
Oh,
very
Yeah,
That's
like
just good.
equipping for red is like, you know, it's a little rough. It's not nothing that you have to specifically use red mana, but like a higher density of cranial platings for your cranial platings deck
Is good.
is just great.
Yeah, that'll kill
Yeah.
people.
Yep. You know what else you can cast off 1 red mana is the warp on what's the red the cast any number of cast an artifact make a drone card.
Oh,
Pinnacle
Pinnacle Emissary. So
Yes.
like in your Izzet deck you probably want the ability to have coloured pips early anyway.
Yeah.
For that you can, you know, play your Pinnacle Emissary, make a bunch of things, play your Improvised Arsenal, a bunch of drones.
And this card's really strong.
Absolutely. Right. Mouser Foundry is 1 and a red for an artifact that says when this enters or leaves the battlefield, create a 1/1 colorless robot artifact creature token, and 4 and a red, sacrifice this artifact. It deals 3 damage to target creature.
Okay.
Henry, why are we talking about this
So
card?
we're talking about this card. We don't have to talk about it for long. I'm just pointing it out as a unique effect, as this is an artifact that makes an artifact on both enters and leaves.
It's actually not that unique.
It's
There's a lot of cards that
there are a lot of cards that will make a little bit of one thing or the other. When I went and looked through it, I didn't find a artifact that made one on both.
Servo Schematic.
So schematic is a probably better.
Probably better.
Version of this
Colourless.
effect.
Alright, apologies. I did try and double check my work on this
Alright.
one. But
Also,
I
like,
did miss
I guess
that.
technically the mirror that makes a thing on death, but again, it's like it's just
Servo Schematic, I think, specifically requires being sacked.
It does require going to the graveyard.
Yes.
I don't think
enters or leaves
is usually
enters or leaves.
is unique, but there are a couple other artifacts that enter and make a 1/1 and leave and make a 1/1 or
Yeah.
make some other.
Most of the ones that I saw, you tended to make a non-artifact, except I guess Servo Schematic.
I think the biggest thing with this is it's pretty relevant that it doesn't cost a colored pip, because if you're doing like KCI, Ashnod's Altar,
Yeah.
like loops where you're stacking them,
This
you're
one-
often stacking them for colorless mana and you want to make lots of colorless mana.
Yeah, and that does get it quite a lot.
Yeah, I don't know if Mouser Foundry has a huge it is relevant. It makes a lot of stuff. The fact that you can stack it is good, but
Yeah, you could do. We can move on.
Yeah. Right. Next is Raphael the Night Watcher. Lachie.
okay. So Raphael the Night Watcher costs 4 mana, 2 and double red. You can sneak it in for 3 mana. Again, it's double red for the sneak, and it gives attack creatures you control double strike. And it's a 2/3 at base, so it gives itself double strike when it attacks. I don't think this card is particularly good.
I think this is a shoe-in for Boros Legends.
Okay.
I think that if you play this alongside the tokens variant stuff, you will usually have an unblocked attacker, which you can swap in for Raphael, and it will make your other creature that is blocked win the combat, because it gives that creature double strike as well. That like as long as you are attacking with like 3 things into 2 things, they blocked and trade with your 2 things. This turns the unblocked thing into 4 damage, and your 2 trades into combat. You're winning. Like. This card's, I think, very good in terms of how it will play out into most creature decks in Boros Legends.
Okay, seems like good in Boros Legends, but I don't
Otherwise-
think I'm gonna play in any other deck.
Otherwise, probably not. I could see it in the tokens deck, but the tokens deck is very, very difficult to work out what the right ratios are. Like, it's very strong there in terms of amplifying things, and you do see that same effect, but less so because, like, their tokens are usually a little smaller, and so you're unlikely to win combat by giving them double strike. Yeah, I think this card's really strong.
Okay, cool. Alright, next we have Ravenous Robots. Henry.
Ooh, 1 and a red for a 2/1 artifact creature robot. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colorless robot artifact creature token, and red, tap creature tokens you control gain haste until end of turn. This is one of the many reasons to build an Is It affinity deck as opposed to like mono blue or something else in this set. Triggering off artifact means it triggers off your other artifact creatures as opposed to non-creature spell like Third Path Iconoclast. And that red ability is very, very strong for allowing it to impact the board on turns where you are going off without getting it in danger. So I think this card's just very good.
Yeah, anything that's like cheap whenever you cast an artifact, make more artifacts is crazy. Like, having played a lot of artifact decks now with Pinnacle Emissary in them, the difference between like 2 and 3 or 1 and 3, like, is so huge.
Yes.
Like, you know, previously the effects you had were like Saheeli, Psy,
Forensic Gadgeteer, which doesn't impact the board.
And that was technically Third Path Iconoclast,
Yeah.
mentioned, but like getting another one of those is really good.
I like another one being 2 mana is really the best thing.
The fact that it triggers off artifact creatures as well, you know, you want to play your Patchwork Automatons, Kappa Cannoneers, and you still get an artifact from that.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
Yeah.
I think this card's just great. If you're in artifacts in red, play it. Yeah.
One of the reasons the Is It affinity deck I think now works.
That's it for red. Moving on to green, starting with Courier of Comestibles. Lachie.
Shout out to Capers for this one. Career of Comestibles is 1 and a green for a 1/2 human citizen. When it enters the battlefield, you can search your library for a food card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. If you don't put a card into your hand this way, make a food. I genuinely think this is one of the stronger cards in the set. There's a lot of cards that are randomly food, more and more, as we...
I'd say Ginger, honestly, is to me just like
Ginger
the base.
Just a hasty thing in your artifact deck. The fact that the flaw is it makes a food, like even if you can't find a thing, you still get a body in a food. This card is great at making game objects.
Yeah, I do think you really have to be in on that for that to be good. Like, I don't think that the food package is strong enough to be like a shooter package that you're happy splashing or anything.
I mean, even if you just put a candy trail in your deck, and you're in an artifact deck, so you're probably playing Urza's Saga, and you just have access to like a pretty good cantrip that you can go.
I think one of the most important things about this card is the fact that Wizards have very clearly staked food as a thing they just want to keep printing, right? Like they keep printing new food.
Like even Avatar.
True.
And so the fact that there is a tutor for a food card just means that this will only get better over time.
Yeah, this card's going to eventually be.
And like
something.
maybe right now it is only in the silly haha food deck.
I think
Which is maybe better than that, but I think will just be something that we'll end up seeing more and more players.
I think maybe in 5-10 years there's going to be more and more and more food. The card's just going to get better and better.
Yeah.
I also think it's notable that they have given it a very generic name and typing so that they can reprint it, because I can't imagine other sets.
Yeah, this could absolutely be in Eldraine.
Comestibles in.
Yeah.
Eldraine, I don't know if they do citizens. I guess it could be in one of the towns or something in Eldraine. Yeah. Human citizen's pretty generic. It can be in other things.
Yeah.
Cool. Brings us to another terribly named card, Guac and Marshmallow Pizza. Henry.
Yeah, so this card's awful, but so I'll read it out. 1, it is a single green mana for an artifact food with flash. When this artifact enters, target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Untap it, and it's a food, so 2, tap, stack it, you gain 3 life. What this is interesting to me for is I was looking for trying to find redundancy on the sewer can. And this is half the sewer can, and there is another artifact in green that is also half a sewer can. There is Bow of Galadriel from Lord of the Rings, which is 2 and a green for an equipment that when it enters, equips to a thing and untaps it and gives the equipped creature +1/+2. So with Welder, the pizza, and the bow, you can make your Welder infinitely big and then kill them with it. Because it will get +2/+2 every time you loot the pizza. Now, that does mean you'll want green in your artifact deck, which is maybe weird and maybe bad, but it is an interesting thing that you can do, and it does give you some redundancy on the sewer cam part of the effect. That's why this card is here. I hope that doesn't work, because I don't want to ever see this card in play across from me, but I feel it would be remiss of me not to point that out.
Well, thank you for showing us this abomination.
So bad.
It really looks-
Alright, get off.
Alright, yeah. Next is high score. 2 green for an enchantment that says if one or more +1/+1 counters would be put on a creature you control, that many +1 are put on instead. Hardened scales. And at the beginning of your end step, draw a card if you control a creature with the greatest power among creatures on the battlefield. It's another hardened scales, but it is 3 mana. But it also draws you cards, sometimes, depending on what the battlefield is looking like. I kind of like this more in the deck that you've been talking about, Henry, of a artifactless Scales deck that is probably playing more of a mid-range game plan than like a combo aggro deck like Scales is normally. Where you are just sort of grinding them out. You ideally want to play this at a point where you get to just get that card immediately, because it does trigger at your end step as opposed to, at your upkeep. So I think it has some potential in like less traditional hardened scales variants.
Yeah. I still just look at it at 3 mana and think like it doesn't directly impact the board, and that you then need to have ways to put counters on things. And whereas like the nice thing about scales is it's 1 mana. It's very easy to sequence in a way where you're immediately getting value.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think there's quite a lot of redundancy for this effect now of like getting an extra counter when you put counters on things. So like I think you could probably afford to be picky enough that you don't play this all the time.
The fact that it draws at end step means that like you can pretty much guarantee that it will draw you the card on the turn that you play it. And it gives you the ability to meet its condition before you get the card draw on any following turn. So I don't think it's too difficult to turn this into a card advantage engine. And like, if you are meeting its condition regularly, then you should be able to continue to meet it as it goes on. It should snowball in both ways. So like, I definitely think this is a card that you would test in Scaled, but I agree that it might not get there. Just because, it is a 3 mana enchantment that is not immediately impacting the board or like winning you the game the time that you play it. But yeah, I think it's an interesting card.
Yeah. Alright. Now we haven't had enough sneak cards yet. So Lachie, can you explain Michelangelo's technique?
Michelangelo's technique is 4 and a green for a sorcery which says, look at the top 8 cards of your library. Put up to 2 creature cards with total mana value 6 or less from among them onto the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. But it also has Sneak for 3 and a green, so you can cast it for a little bit cheaper. So this is 5 mana sorcery speed collected company. But if you sneak, you get still sorceries that it's like
not sorcery, but basically sorcery
basically
speed.
sorcery collected company.
So the reason I think this card is worth discussing is because I agree that Collected Company is not worth it. But part of why Collected Company is not worth it in this format is because you only have 1 Collected Company. And it's a very large deck building restriction to be able to consistently hit cards off your Collected Company. So it's not worth it at Singleton, I think, to be building towards that effect. But having an additional copy of that makes it more interesting, and you have more reason to build towards that impact. Collected Company is a strong card if you are building towards it. And this is, while yes, sorcery speed, it is more forgiving in 2 ways, looking at 8 instead of 6, and getting up to 2 with a total mana value of 6 or less is better. Lets you cheat in a 6-drop rather than get hit 2 3s if you want to.
Okay, that's true. I hadn't considered that. The fact that if you're in a Jum deck or something, you could still get, I don't know, Metamorphosis Fanatic or something silly like that.
Yeah.
It is a genuine strength. You can get, I don't know, let's say you're in a Abzan deck, you could get Grief and Failure, or get, you can Yeah, the fact that you can get 4 drops if you get something cheaper, which you probably can find, is not nothing.
It says a lot about this card, but I think it's better than Collected Company.
Yeah, looking at 8 is a huge like I think it is a lot better than Collected Company, but I also think Collected Company is good enough if you build to it.
Okay, you know what? Maybe I'm judging this card too harshly because I do think if you get 2 creatures off it, casting it on 5 isn't the worst. You know, and I think it's one of those cards where you'll sneak it if you can, but you're probably okay casting it on 5 if you are getting that
The
situation.
fact you're only getting a 1-mana discount means the sneak is not.
Yeah, but
super
you're
relevant.
drawing and putting 2 cards into play.
It is really weird to me that
it's
this
not.
sneak cost doesn't put them into play tapped and attacking.
Yeah, I guess
do
it's
that.
not a green effect, but you're right. It does feel like if you're sneaking it in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of the sneak cards which put a creature into play but don't put them into play attacking feel really wrong to me.
Yeah, but that's just because we're so ninjutsu.
Okay, you know what? I was pretty low on this card looking at it, but I'm more convinced thinking about particularly the fact that it can get a 4 and 5 drop if you need to.
Yeah. You can get your metaphors, you can get your Fanatic and Dryad Arbor.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Putting Grist into play is also just good. It's that's a reason the sorcery speed it is to put your Grist into play.
That's true.
Yeah, no. I think this card is
You
worth
can play it
considering.
with Worldly Tutor too, that's also nice. You can make sure you get something.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
Cute. Alright. Next up we have. Next up we have Michelangelo the Heart.
Yes.
Henry.
1 and a green for a 2/1 legendary creature, Mutant Ninja Turtle with Trample and Raid the Fridge. At the beginning of your second main phase, if you attack this turn, put a +1 counter on target creature and create a food token. So, I don't really like the fact that this triggers at your second main phase. I feel like the counter and food effect are both things you really want to happen pre-combat. But it is a snowbally 2-drop that does innately already have Trample, and it's not too hard to trigger it regularly, and making game objects every turn is very strong. To compare it to Astrid Peth, I think this card is worse than Astrid Peth, but I think you would play it alongside Astrid Peth.
You heard it here first, folks. Worse than Astrid Peth.
I think Astrid Peth is good.
I do think the fact that this card puts a counter anywhere it does just mean that it's probably good. Of just you play your 1-drop, maybe you attack with it. I don't know, maybe a green aggro deck even where it's just you have your Hex Drinker and on 1 and you're getting in with it, or even just your Mana Dork because you have this on 2.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the new reign of food mid-range, which I'm sure will dominate every event with the huge buff it's got from all of these food-specific cards.
It's true. Look, I think this one has more applications outside of food. I actually think the food is the least relevant part of this card. I think the fact that it can grow any creature if you have just full stop attacked, is pretty good.
Also, trample on your things that get bigger is always nice.
This is a card I do kind of want to play in Selesnya Legends, legitimately. I think that it likes Flowering the White Tree a lot, and it plays well following. If you really wants to be following a 1-drop, and that deck really wants to play a 1-drop that can attack, so I think that could make sense.
Yeah. Right. Right. Next up is Michelangelo Weirdness to 11, which is 1 and a green for 1/1 legendary creature Mutant Ninja Turtle. When Michelangelo enters, create a mutagen token. It's the first time I think we've hit mutagen tokens. They are an artifact token with 1 tap, sacrifice this token, put a +1 counter on target creature, activate only as a sorcery. Sort of like worse maps, in my opinion, but...
But you always get the counter.
But the main thing this card also has is the text, if 1 or more +1/+1 counters would be put on a creature, put that many +1 instead, which is, again, hard scales.
This card's great.
Yeah, this card's excellent.
Yes.
I think this card is going to be a genuine boon to the scale strategies in this format, where it's you get a very good version of your effect on the body. It comes with an artifact, which is also really, really relevant for Arcbound Ravager lines and things like that. You can put the counter anywhere, so you can put it somewhere else and immediately attack, or you can put it on Michelangelo and it'll make himself a 3/3. Card is good. It plays well, has a lot of flexibility. I think it's great.
I think this also goes in food mid-range. I know that food mid-range is like food, but it is really game objects mid-range. This makes a game object. A lot of the things incidentally put counters on stuff.
Yeah.
I think this card's really good there as well.
Yeah.
No, just a good card.
No, it's a good card.
Yeah. Except
And it's
it's
something else.
Michelangelo.
it could not look hideous and not be a Ninja Turtle.
Play the
not-
alt art on the left. That one I like quite a bit.
Yeah,
Sure,
all the other
yeah.
arts.
Don't
No.
play any of the other arts.
I don't want to see it.
No,
I want to
thank
see it
you.
across the table.
All right. We now have a Mutagen Man, Living Ooze. Lucky.
So Mutagen Man Living Ooze is green, and X for a 2/3 trample. Ooze Mutant. Activated abilities of artifact tokens you control cost 1 less to activate, and when he enters, you make X mutant tokens. This card, I think, is also excellent and is a big buff to scale strategies and
Yeah.
7-point.
I-
I've been brewing scales with Freya on and off,
Yeah.
and she's experimented with that deck, and I very much expect this card to see play in.
I do like that kind of at its base, it's just like a Hydra, where it's like X, it's X plus 2 plus, 2,
Yeah.
3
Oh,
as a trample creature. Also, I don't know, I feel like the effect of make X artifacts is quite powerful.
No, there are very few effects in Magic that do that. I think this
It's
card
like
would have-
Kafka.
this card I could see seeing play in a lot of strategies. The fact that the mutagens all sack for 0 is on the field, so
Yeah.
you can immediately pay a bunch of mana into this, buff your entire team and attack,
Yeah.
even without him getting in.
This I think is the actual best card for food mid-range in the set.
Because it makes all the food.
Makes all your food cost
Yeah.
less to sacrifice, and all of your clues, makes a bunch of turns your Gaia's Cradle mana into artifacts for your Galarian Academy.
Cast this off Cradle, then cast something off Academy.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
I think this card's really, really good as
Yeah,
a
clue sack for 1, food sack for 1.
yeah, I think it ties that deck together really well.
Yeah.
The floor is already good stats trample creature with a relevant ability for your deck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, card's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
Crack is the back to your hand, do it again.
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of gross. Yeah.
Cool. And for our last card in green, we have Ninja Pizza. Henry.
Alright, Ninja Pizza is 2 and a green for an enchantment with food you control. Have tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color, and at the beginning of your second main phase, create a food token. I'm not sure what this card will do. I think that it will
so
do
have you
something.
heard of
wrong.
this cool deck called Food Midrange?
So I'm not sure that
They
wants
don't
this.
play. I don't know if they play Knight of Sweet's Revenge, but I
yeah.
like Knight of Sweet's Revenge a lot more than this. For 1 more mana, the food tap for green rather than any color, but
You don't sack
you
them.
get to keep them. They don't sack them. And it has an overrun effect stapled as the second ability. The fact that this makes food is very good, but
I think there could be a version of the deck that wants both those effects to
Yeah.
really going all in on making a ton of mana off of these cards.
yeah, I do think redundancy for turn your food tokens into mana is relevant if there's a combo deck that wants to be doing that.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll happen. Maybe it'll see play.
But yeah, I don't know for sure what this does. I haven't found a specific way to break it. I was thinking about could you do something by allowing your Ginger Brute to tap and sack for mana on the turn that you play it immediately, and then can you recast it from your graveyard with that mana you make? But you need a lot of pieces to actually make that work.
Actually, I do think this card is quite good in a specific deck. In that I think this card is an excellent enabler for an egg strategy, where it makes.
Oh, yeah.
There are now a lot of egg effects that are all food. Particularly with this set, with all the disgusting pizza. But Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
previous Eldraine sets, you've got Golden Egg, all effects like that. So you can play this, sack all your eggs for mana immediately for 0, draw cards, cast Second Sunrise or whatever, and do that. And having that effect for 3 mana is pretty good. I do think that actually could be a thing.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right. So our last card in green brings us to Tokka and Razor Terrible Twos. I'm sure some big TMNT fans can tell me how wrong I am pronouncing that name. It is black-red hybrid for a 3/2 legendary creature Turtle Wolf Mutant. With this spell can't be countered. It has Menace, and whenever a player casts a spell, if the amount of mana spent to cast it was less than its mana value, this card deals 3 damage to that player. I am quite high on this card. I really like it in black and or red aggressive decks. I like that it punishes them not just for, force of wills and subtleties and stuff, but also pyrokinesis and fury are the cards that are very good against this deck. This kind of strategy, I should say. Quantum Riddler. There are a lot of things.
Lord of the Balmurk.
5 mana for your mental misstep.
Yeah.
5 life, sorry, for your mental misstep. It's, I think it genuinely hits a lot of stuff, and at its base, it's a 2 mana, 3/2 menace that can't be countered.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, that seems like really good in aggressive decks, and stopping the Fury, Pyrokinesis, or punishing them for doing that.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
I do reckon, and I want to preempt people playing this and then going, oh, this wasn't really doing anything a lot. This card will prevent your opponent from doing things that will kill them a lot, and you won't see that ability trigger nearly as much as you think it will. That doesn't mean the card is bad. That means you're killing them because you're preventing them from doing the things they want to be doing. It's like very much the Caracas effect of like, it's probably doing something that you're not seeing, and you should be very happy with that. Maybe ask your opponent after the game if it was doing something. They'll probably say yes.
Yeah, good card.
Yeah.
Right. Next up, we have Mikey and Leo, Chaos and Order. Lachie.
Alright, another Scales card here. So we have Mikey and Leo, Chaos and Order. It is for a 2 hybrid green-white mana. You get a 2/2 Mutant Ninja Turtle. Whenever you put a counter on a creature you control, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. This is a strange effect, but I don't actually know if the counters decks want this, where there are similar card draw options. I like that
Legion from March Machine.
There's also the new is it Terra Symbiosis or the other? There's an enchantment in Edge of Eternity.
It also does the same thing.
It does a similar thing.
Walks for 1, pay it for 4.
I just don't know if the thing that deck wants is to be drawing cards when it gets counters. Like, I think you'd rather be playing another big creature, and the fact that it doesn't have any keywords or like particularly exciting stats on its own.
Yeah.
mean I don't know if those decks want this, but like
might be better in the mono white legends deck that we've been talking about.
That's where I think
if it's already running stuff like Agent Bishop,
Luminarch Aspirant.
Yeah.
Like I think it's better in that kind of deck that isn't all in on the counters, because I think that deck, the counters are just representing a form of incremental value you get over time, and this is adding an extra one on top of that, so you're just kind of like making your creatures bigger, drawing more and more cards, and eventually kind of overwhelm them.
Yeah, I think it's probably better there. I'm not sure if it will fit there though. Like that deck has a decent number of 2s it's happy with and really likes its human sub themes.
Notably not a human.
No, since this card's not a human, I'm a bit more iffy on it. But like cards are good in decks that are like committing to the board a lot. Like you really want to like the play pattern of committing to your board with like growing threats and then not having to keep committing until your threats are answered is very good if you're able to maintain your card in hand quantity so that you can redevelop after the fact. And this card does let you do that. So I think it's worth experimenting with, but I'm not 100% sold on it. This effect is strong.
I just I always gotta say once each turn. Like
it's clearly
it would be
too good.
obscene if it didn't say
Yes.
that. But
alright. Now we have Northwind Avatar. Henry.
Sure. So 2 blue, and a red for a creature, dragon, spirit, avatar, 5 mana total. It's a 5/5 flyer. When this creature enters, if you cast it, you may put a card you own from outside the game into your hand. So I'm really interested in seeing what Blue Moon players think of this. I understand that a 5 mana 5/5 you have to play at sorcery speed is like very much a risky thing to tap out for. But Highlander is a format where sideboard cards are absurdly impactful. Just like truly haymakers some of them can just win you a matchup on their own. So having access to a sideboard card on a body that otherwise wins you the game or like requires an answer immediately is I think a very interesting place to be. Especially like in Singleton, where that could mean that you have more access to your sideboard card in like later games to effects that you've maybe sideboarded out, but just because they're a bit too niche, but like would be otherwise good. I think this card's like maybe like you side out your Blood Moon because you think it's not very good, and then you then your opponent plays fully not around a duel, doesn't respect a duel, and you go, all right, well, let me get that back. I'll blow menu next turn. Maybe it's a bit late, but I think that could be quite interesting as a play.
Yeah, I think that this card has some really interesting potential, and like I do agree. Like I love me a wishboard. I love getting sideboard cards and like having access to my sideboard during games. You know, I love playing Khan. Love playing Burning Wish and Wish in combo decks. The problem here is that like you really want to be able to get and deploy something, and that's probably going to cost you like 7 or 8 mana. But I was thinking about maybe playing this in like a Teamer Scape Shift style deck, which is the kind of thing that generally wants to play wish effects and things anyway. And in that deck, when if you're running a bunch of ramp effects, you're quite happy playing this and then immediately casting the Brotherhood's End or other like, haymaker you get from your sideboard. Because that deck, often Scape Shift strategies will have the Scape Shift in the board because it's only good when you have a bunch of mana and you're winning, you know, when you have a bunch of lands out.
Yeah.
Or a very particular setup. So like something like that, some kind of ramp strategy, I think this card is really good. It's why Khan is so good in ramp strategies too, is that the ability to immediately play the sideboard card you get is really kind of key to those things working.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think that like in a more flow control deck, the fact that this is like a 5-mana 5/5, so like unlike Khan, is impacting the board and protecting you for a full turn, like might mean that it's okay to still tap out for this on 5. But I think it's much more interesting if you can tap slam the thing immediately.
I'm definitely going to be experimenting with this card. I think it has some pretty cool applications.
Nice. Next up, we have Bebop and Rocksteady. 1 black-green hybrid for legendary creature Boar Rhino Mutant. It is a 7/5 for 3 mana. And it has whenever Bebop and Rocksteady attack or block, sacrifice a permanent unless you discard a card. Where is this going?
So, have you heard of our beloved Rotting Regisaur?
I have. I think this is worse than Rotting Regisaur.
It's interesting. I think it is different to Rotting Regisaur. I think the fact that you don't cast it for Ancient Tomb mana is very bad. I think the fact that you can choose to sacrifice a random artifact or something you have on the board instead of losing a card from hand if you want is very good. I also think the fact that you get to choose, I'm going to go to combat and do this, so it means you can set up before combat to get a thing you want to discard into your hand. I think really the place that this goes is in Rakdos aggro, Madness aggro. Which a deck that loves Rotting Regisaur and would probably quite enjoy a Rotting Regisaur that you get to choose, basically choose when you're triggering it to get this card effect.
I think one of the biggest things holding this back is legendary.
It is very hard to get Caracas.
Rakdos Madness deck is very weak to Caracas, generally. And I think this is particularly rough to get Caracas because you can sort of do it at the most optimal point for making them spend resources on it. But you're right, it's not, it certainly has a home there, and it's still a 7/5 for 3 mana, which is just good.
I'll also point out, this is like the rough comparison to Rotting Regisaur. 7/6 is a lot better than 7/5 in terms of not dying to dismember.
Yeah, not dying to dismember is pretty big.
Yeah.
I just really like that it can sack a permanent as well. If you're in like a Golgari beatdown,
That's
like
true.
Poxy lands deck,
Sacking
you
a
can-
1 token or like an insect.
an Earthbent land, sacrifice, there's all kinds of things, sack a land, replay it with a Crucible effect.
Yeah, that's
I think there are a lot of ways to get advantage from the trigger, even though it is mostly going to be detrimental. Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's big and it kills people really quick.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right. Now we have Go Ninja Go. Lachie.
Okay. Why do I get like the most cringe, weird looking cards? I'm sure it is good. I just
You're not getting the good. There's not many good.
there's not many very obviously Ninja Turtles cards in the set, I'll admit. So, Go Ninja Go is a red and a white for a sorcery that says choose one or both, exile a creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. Or Go Ninja Go deals damage equals to the greatest power among creatures you control to target creature an opponent controls.
This card's worded really favorably, right? Like, that second effect doesn't target one of your creatures, it only targets one of your opponents, which means that it can't be blown up by a removal spell if you have more than one creature. It also
it still can, right?
it's much harder to blow out with a removal spell.
Yeah. The one difference between is the delta on like what that effect does when it resolves is probably a lot higher than the ones that deal damage equal to the number of creatures you control. In that, let's say you cast that and you kind of suspect your opponent has a removal spell. So you're like, okay, this is probably going to do 1 or 2 less than the amount of creatures I currently have. But let's imagine you have like a 4-power creature and a 1/1.
Yeah.
If they kill the 4-power creature in response, that's a very big difference in what the card could do when it resolves.
Yeah.
So I don't like this card, to be clear. And it is because it is a modal spell, and typically modal spells are very good. But both modes on this card require you to have creatures on the battlefield and care about specific creatures on the battlefield.
Yeah.
So I don't like that. Like, it doesn't do anything on an empty board, and it can be blown out by removal actually pretty easily by like the relevant things being dealt with in response.
I do think as well though that like split card blink removal is a really good split card, right? Like even if the blink is like sorcery, so not great blink, and the removal is conditional, so not great removal, like both those things are things that if you build your deck to want, that's really powerful. Like the cards that are good to blink in the format are great. Blinking cards in the format is really good, and removal is just like good. So I think this card is worth trying. I think that it is hard to really work out where to put it because a lot of the decks that want to blink things don't actually play that big creatures for the removal half. That makes it a bit trickier. But I would probably consider testing this in Moonshine personally. Moonshine has a bunch of ETBs it really likes and makes it difficult for your opponent to use their removal effectively. So I think this card's I think it could be playable there.
Look, I think if you tell me like high split card that is like a conditional removal spell and a flicker effect, like a blink effect, I'm like, that sounds really strong. Then you tell me sorcery, and I go, that sounds awful.
But also, both of those things at the same time on your split card for 2 mana.
No,
I'm aware.
One of both is very strong, but I think that blink effects lose a lot of their value being sorcery speed, because a lot of the value is you can save a thing from removal, you can cheese a solitude or grief or something into play.
Yeah.
And because the main thing is that when you go to blink a thing, you are opening yourself up for a blowout.
Yeah.
And the same with the removal. But the benefit of an instant speed thing is that you can wait till your opponent's tapped out or do it at a time that they're casting something else, and you can, you can minimize the risk that way. Sorcery is like you don't have a lot of opportunities to minimize that risk. So you kind of most times you cast this, I imagine you are leaving yourself open to a blowout.
Yeah, the way you have to, the board position you need to be in to get like most value out of this is you want to be blinking something that is smaller than the damage you plan on dealing, so you can't be blown out on both fronts. Like that's kind of what you have to build to, which means like maybe blinking a recruiter and dealing damage with your like 3/3 value.
It does feel like there's maybe a little too much setup for this card to be worth it.
Very probably.
Yeah.
But I think this card
It's
is like
interesting. I could look. Maybe I'm wrong, and just the payoff is so strong that you do play the card. But
the
I would not want to
modality
be casting this into open mana.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That's why you play Blood Moon. But you can't do that.
Yeah. Then if your opponent's locked under Blood Moon,
Sure,
you
then
can win with whatever.
Yeah, that's fair.
Next up is Mechanized Ninja Cavalry.
So,
Henry.
this is one in a hybrid red-white for an artifact creature robot ninja. It's a 1/1. When this creature enters, create a 1/1 colorless robot artifact creature token. So, again, not super unique in terms of being a 1/1 creature that makes a 1/1. Is unique in being an artifact that makes an artifact 1/1 on both sides.
It's honestly somewhat unique. There aren't
No,
actually
there's
that
not
many
one,
raise the
and
alarms.
It's in white and red, both
There we
with
go.
artifact creatures.
There are a few recently things that have made like that have been a 1/1 that make a 1/1 with like Flash.
Yeah.
There's a couple of them they've been printing. Mostly because of like then you get the upside of blinking the body that made the 1/1, right?
Yes.
Like in this set it's explicitly so that you can sneak this one out and like still have the ability to get more 1/1s for sneaking. Hybrid red-white's nice, especially because most tokens decks are red and white and often black, so like being nice on your mana is good. Being an artifact is good if you want to be all in on that artifact aggro deck.
Yeah.
If you want to like Gleeful Demolition or Kuldotha Rebirth your 1/1 into more 1/1s.
I'm most interested in this just being an artifact that makes multiple artifacts.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm thinking about that. Is it Affinity style deck?
I don't know if you
So
want to
Kind
kind
of a
of.
white artifact.
Maybe you
I
do.
honestly think you do. If you're an Affinity deck, just a card that makes 2 artifacts at a reasonable rate.
Yeah, I can see it.
I think it's quite good.
Yeah.
Honestly, just there's raise the alarm for 2 artifact creatures is not an effect we've had, and I think that the biggest upside for that is an Affinity style deck where like it's 2 things that can wear a cranial plating. It reduces all your things.
Yeah.
Makes your Academy tap for more mana. Gets you towards Metalcraft with like 1 card, where you
Yeah.
only need 1 other thing for Mox Opal to tap for mana. Like Mox Opal just taps for mana with this.
Yeah, absolutely. That's true.
I don't know. I think it's honestly like I was looking at it when it came up on screen. I was like, why are we talking about this? And I'm like, artifact, 2 artifacts.
2
Yeah.
artifacts.
2 artifacts is
We love
you know,
2 artifacts.
it's like a very like it's a random role player common that I think it is actually quite nice in those decks.
Agreed.
Next up, Rapid Leo Sibling Rivals is 1 and 2 red-white hybrid for a 2/4 legendary creature Mutant Ninja Turtle. Whenever Rapid Leo attack, if it's the first combat of the turn, untap 1 or 2 target attacking creatures. After this phase, there is an additional combat phase.
This is a Legends card.
Yeah.
You can consider it Legends. I think it's in sort of the same space as Lightning. In terms of it is
It's Arena of Gloryable, and if it's not Arena of Glory, it's
a bit rough without haste. This one really wants you.
2/4 is nice over like the 3/2 that
I
Lightning
do like
is.
that a lot. That's
Yeah.
part of why I'm a bit more interested in this over Lightning is that this is much more likely to win to live to your following turn if you don't haste it out, and you're more likely to be able to get a bit more damage out of it by just like say you have a Senu or a Spider Woman, you can get an additional attack with your flyer. Really good with Vigilance.
I was gonna
notably.
say, yeah, really good with Vigilance.
Really good with Vigilance, because you get the combat no matter what, but it doesn't need to untap your Vigilant creatures. It's nice that this has hybrid mana, because that makes it easier to cast. But yeah, this is very much a Legends card.
Yeah, the 3-drop slot's still pretty competitive in Legends.
It's very competitive, so I'm not confident it will see play there.
Yeah.
Especially because I think that the Sneak Wrath is probably better. That is more likely to kill your opponent the time you play it. But this card I think is still very much a consideration.
Okay. And our last card of the gold cards is the Neutrinos.
Shall I take this one?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the Neutrinos is 2 red-white for a 2/4 flying legendary creature, Elf Rebel, with flying. It has Alliance. Whenever another creature you control enters, the Neutrinos gets +1 attack until end of turn. Whenever the Neutrinos attack, exile up to 1 target creature you own, then return it to the battlefield under your control, tapped and attacking. So, okay, this card, more than anything, wants a haste enabler, but beyond that, it's got some very interesting applications. The funniest one, I'm not saying the best one, but the funniest one is Gilded Drake, in that it says creature you own, and you can get your Gilded Drake back and steal another thing and then give them a tapped Gilded Drake back. Now, the best thing you can do is probably the fact that this goes infinite in terms of attacks with Fear of Missing Out and Combat Celebrant, because you can re-exert them on the next attack, or get another attack on the next attack, and attack infinitely with them. So, if you have the Delirium for Fear of Missing Out, you have to be careful because you'll loot through your whole deck. But when you blink it, it'll re-enter, and then on the neck, and it will, and you'll get another round attack, and you'll get another attack. From the untap's a bit tricky on that one. Maybe
Wait,
that one.
I don't think
Hang on a second.
I don't think you do because I think it triggers.
Combat Celebrant does work. You have to stack the triggers.
Yeah,
Right?
Combat Celebrant.
Combat Celebrant
I
does
don't
work.
think Fear of Missing Out does work.
Fear doesn't
No.
work. Apologies.
Yeah.
Fear doesn't work. But Combat Celebrant does work. Because you stack the triggers to blink the Celebrant before the Celebrant's exert trigger resolves, and then it will come back. It'll be untapped by its own trigger, and you'll get to re-exert it on the following attack. So that does work. Admittedly, a very risky infinite, because
Yeah.
like any blocker kills your Celebrant. So I think in order for that to be something you're willing to do, you need to be happy playing this card for other reasons. And the fact that this is an on-attack blink like Felia, but puts the thing back immediately and attacking, means this is effectively a haste enabler for like your Fury. If you play this into Fury, you kill everything, you attack
That's
with
true.
this, blink your Fury, the Fury will re-enter attacking, and you will hit them for a huge amount of damage.
Yeah, the creature doesn't need to be attacking. I hadn't
Yeah.
noticed that.
Yes.
That is okay. That
Like
makes me higher on the card than I was.
Yeah, this card is definitely interesting. It is ultimately still a 4-drop without haste and no ETB.
Yes, it is asking a lot of you, but
Yeah.
it is really paying you off if you build to it.
Yeah.
The thought of this exiling a hieroglyph that's
Yeah.
just come in makes me shudder in fear.
Yes.
Yes.
Awful. And
last-
if Initiative was still played, it would be pretty
Oh, it'd be,
gross.
yeah, it would be good.
Oh yeah. Last thing I'll note, and this I don't know if this will come up or not, but it's in the colors where it could. This is a rebel for Othari. So it does return your Othari to play.
And you can tutor it with Catherine summons.
Uh,
No, that's mercenary.
Mercenary.
Roll one. You need
No. Cut
Lynn
that out.
Civvy.
Cut that out. I can't believe I misremembered Catherine summons.
But yeah, this card I think has a surprisingly large number of
Yeah.
applications.
Brings us on to colors, starting with Big Mother Mouser, which is 4 mana for an artifact creature robot. It's a 0/0, but it enters with 2 +1/+1 counters. It has whenever this creature attacks, double the number of +1/+1 counters on it, and when this creature dies, create a number of 1/1 colorless robot artifact creature tokens equal to the number of counters on this creature. So sort of a Hangerback Walker.
You have to do X equals 2 on your Hangerback Walker, and this is Hangerback Walker.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is just Hangerback Walker.
Yeah.
But rather than paying 1 and tapping it, you can attack with it to double the number of counters on it.
Yeah,
And rather
which
than
is-
a counter.
Double is big.
Double is
big.
It's
And
pretty
the fact
good.
that
And if you
like,
have the scales effects,
yeah, it's you're very likely not having it enter as a 2/2. It's usually entering as a 3/3 or maybe even a 4/4.
We played alongside Ravager so you can make sure you get your dice trigger.
the thought of this with Arcane Ravager,
Yeah.
very, very good.
And it's just another Hangerback Walker for the Scales deck. It's just really good.
Hangerback Walker, one of the best cards in that deck,
Yeah,
and they're getting
and-
redundancy for that.
Yeah.
And coming up, they're getting a bit of redundancy for Arcane Ravager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think Hard Scales is getting
Getting a
little
lot
bit
of
of a boost for
toys,
this set.
yeah.
Nice.
I don't think we have anything else to say.
No, this card
Yep.
seems very good in exactly that deck.
Yep.
Next. Chrome Dome. Lachie.
Chrome Dome is a 2 mana artifact creature, robot ninja. It's a 1/3. With other artifact creatures you control, get +1/+0, and then 5 mana to make a token that's a copy of another artifact you control. The token gains haste, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step.
Really sad this can't target itself. Not that that matters usually, but like I really would like it if this card could be the outlet that does kill you on its own.
I think, honestly, I was going to say the second ability is flavor text, but it's not, because if you're an Academy deck, you very much will get to activating that second ability.
Yeah.
But I think this is another card for the kind of hypothetical low to the ground affinity aggro deck where you are making all of your, drones, thopters, servos.
Seems
bigger,
like a
swing out.
slam dunk in Necrons.
Yeah, slam.
Absolutely.
I think that the new Necrons build is a little taller, a little. But,
Yeah,
I think the lower to it's less low to the ground now. Fred and I got sick of losing to Brotherhood then, so he changed that up. But one of the certainly this card is an extremely Brotherhood's endable, which
Yes.
is a downside. But if you do want to go wide, this is a really good way to just kill your opponent very quick, and then late in the game you can copy a Kappa Cannoneer or some other disgusting thing and kill them that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Copy like your Thought Monitor, get some cards. Copy your Krang, sack that one immediately.
And
get some cards.
honestly, just copying Kappa Cannoneer is probably just going to kill them on the spot.
Yeah, that's fair.
It'll
Yeah.
buff itself as usual, so it's relevant that it will be unblockable.
Also, it comes in.
And that's not too hard to do on turn 4 or 5, if not earlier in our deck.
Tap your Academy, tap some lands and a Moss Opal.
Yeah.
Probably a deck that wants to run Soul Ring.
Yeah.
I think this card is very good in artifact aggro.
Yeah, and also it could have. It is a combo outlet if you are doing a combo.
There's been a few other cards like this that let you copy artifacts. I don't know. I think the other ones are 7 mana, so this might be a better rate. But
hear me out. You use your liquid metal coding to turn Academy into an artifact,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, that's
and
interesting.
then
It's any artifact.
it's any artifact.
Oh yeah, that's actually quite doable. Yeah.
Slime Academy is legendary.
Yeah, but that's
yeah.
fine.
Oh no.
But it won't, the copy won't be the copy won't be an artifact because that's not a copyable value.
Oh,
true.
Yeah. Okay, never mind.
No.
But
There's definitely stuff you can do
If
there.
you have Lattice in play, is it an artifact?
Yes.
It is. So with Lattice in play, this is...
but
if you have Lattice
if you
in
have
play.
Khan Lattice in play, you probably won the game.
Well, maybe
but-
you play your Khan, you get your Lattice, they kill your
Yeah.
Khan, you still infinite combo them anyway.
No, I don't know if there is a consistent combo with this card, but it certainly has. I imagine there'll be plenty of game states where you'll look at your board with this on it and go, "Oh, wait a minute," and
Yeah.
do something.
I mean,
really
I could
cool.
think of some niche artifacts, but none that are going to be in the decks people play
Play.
except for me.
I mean,
Yes.
like, if you just have the Welder Suicam combo and you just have a Soul Ring or like a Mana Rock of some kind, this becomes an infinite mana outlet that will kill them.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
Yeah.
It's good. Now we come to Krang, Ultram Warlord. Henry.
9 mana for a legendary artifact creature, Utrom Robot. Can't say that type at all. It's awful. It's a 9/9 with flying, trample, indestructible, and haste. It gives other artifact creatures you control flying, trample, indestructible, and haste. You can tinker this into play, attack your opponent twice, and they will die.
You can.
Do you want to do that?
What you mean is you can tinker it into play, and then they can activate their Caracas, and you can be very sad.
I just don't
Is-
tinker this into play when they have.
Is this
Caracas.
better? Like, I feel like this is like just worse than something like Inkwell Leviathan or Blightsteel
I
Colossus.
think that is very much not true. In that
Okay.
you could be playing against a combo deck or some other thing, and you tinker out your Inkwell Leviathan. It looks very scary, and then they storm off or combo off, and you
Yeah.
never get to untap. I think this has some applications in more aggressive builds of bots that are also on Tinker. I think that is kind of exactly the place for it. I don't think you're doing it anywhere else. But yes, if they have Caracas, you don't Tinker into it. But like, I do think there is some, if you're casting Tinker and you're like, well, I could get Portal to Phyrexia and kill a thing, or I could just get Krang and they're dead on board because I have like 2 other artifact creatures.
Yeah.
I think it is exactly like I want to be able to Tinker and then immediately kill my opponent rather than get a value thing.
This reminds me of the Warring Triad, which I love, and I know is not a card that people outside of Sydney know about much at the moment, except for me yelling about it on the internet. It is a big idiot that kills your opponent in a few hits, and like that works way more often than you think it will. There are a bunch of times you'll get to a low resource game and you'll just be like, if I just take it for this, they'll probably die in 2 hits, and they will, and you can be pretty happy with that.
Also, anyone who has ever played Commander against the Avacyn that makes all your things
Yeah.
knows just how annoying it is having an effect that is giving all your opponent's stuff indestructible that is also indestructible.
Yeah.
It is a nightmare to deal with if you are not in a white deck. And it can be a real pain. I could also see this in some board states where you're just like, well, all my stuff would be trading in combat, but now it's all flying.
Yeah,
But
now they're actually dead.
And it's also like, Brotherhood's enemy now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think this card will see play and it will kill me.
Yeah, I think it's narrow, but good.
Yeah.
Where it's good.
Yeah, cool. All right. That brings us to, on the opposite end of the spectrum, Skateboard.
Oh, I love Skateboard.
Skateboard is 1 mana for a artifact equipment that says when this equipment enters, tap target permanent. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 haste and equips for 1. I think this is just better than the Lava Spur Boots.
I'm very sad to agree, given how much I
You
love
love Lava Spur Boots. You've been maybe the #1 player of Lava Spur Boots in this format.
My main thing I miss not playing a Saga in my deck is not being able to get Lava Spur Boots.
But I think, the best play pattern with Lava Spur Boots was obviously end set, make a construct, untap, Sagas on 3, make a construct, get the Spur Boots, attack them with both.
Yeah.
And this can go, oh, you have 1 blocker?
Yeah.
You have no blockers, I'm attacking you for 5.
And that will just kill them.
Or even, you left up mana for interaction for something else I'm doing.
Yes.
I'm going to tap down your boosters. And now you can't
Yeah.
spell pierce me if I'm doing some other follow-up card.
Yeah, that would be really relevant. Tapping down the opponent's 1 land with that kept up for interaction and doing something main phase 2 will be very relevant with this card. I've heard about land players talking about it with Merit Lage. Because you Merit Lage is also a reason where you will
Sure, yeah, just to give it hate, yeah.
It's a way to give Merit Lage haste that also taps down the Caracas before we make your Merit
You can
Lage.
tap that Trinisphere to turn it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they're 1 flying blocker.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you will see a lot of skateboard.
I think more so than
Boots.
when people were playing Boots.
I think
Absolutely.
this will probably be one of the most played cards in our format from this set.
I think so. I think probably the two most played cards will end up being the 1 mana artifacts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think probably close third Super Shredder. I imagine a lot of people are
There's
going to try out
there's
Super
a
Shredder.
couple creatures.
I think that the skateboard will see more play than the sewer can, but I think the sewer can will be more
Yes.
defining.
Yes.
Interesting.
Cool. Next up we have Technodrome. Lachie.
Alright, I'm very excited about Technodrome. So it is a 2-mana 3/3 artifact creature construct. Construct is very relevant. It can be tutored by the Scrapwork Recombiner. It is a reach trample creature that can't attack or block unless its power is 6 or greater, and it has tap, sacrifice an artifact, draw a card, put a counter on this creature. So, it's a sacrifice outlet for artifacts. Very good in the Scales deck. It gets counters. If you have a Scales effect, it starts attacking and blocking for a lot very quickly. And yeah, I think this card's just really good in exactly Scales. I think it's slam dunk there.
I only just noticed, looking at it now, that it's firing eye missiles.
Yes.
And this is one of the few cards for the set where I actually unironically love the art.
It is such a retro 50s sci-fi monster, and it's so goofy and great.
Yes.
And you've got some power lines, the scale that's trampling
No,
over.
genuinely love the art. But yes, the card is very cool.
Ed's also pretty high on this for Affinity and various other fair artifact decks. You can suit this up with a cranial plating and get in with it very quickly. And then it is just a huge trample thing for your cranial plating.
Yeah.
You can sack your 1/1 from your Ravenous Robots to turn that into a card every turn and really keep your cards flowing. I do think that it is one of those cards that I'm a little sketchy on in terms of it feels very much like you have to work to enable it and slow but in the Goldfishes that I played, it played really well. So maybe I'm I don't know why about this one I'm more iffy on, but I suspect it'll be good.
Yeah, I also think you look at it, you're like, oh, it's 3 turns of sacking artifacts before I can attack with it. It's I think you are almost never. That is almost never going to be the only way you enable it, because you are putting an equipment and Nettle Cyst to cranial plating on it.
Yeah.
If you're in Scales, maybe you are using the ability to get counters on it, but you're getting 2 or 3 counters when you do that, so it's very quickly attacking. I don't think the play pattern of this is often going to be play it, and then after 4 turns of tapping it and sacking, they start to attack.
Yeah.
I think it's going to draw you a couple cards, and then you're going to make it huge, and then you're going to attack them with your big trample thing.
Yeah, I just worry about in that time getting Brotherhood's ended.
Yeah.
You know what's great though? If they roll it in, you can draw a card in response at least from one of the things that was going to die.
As long as it's not summoning sick. Because it's not like the Warring Tribe or it's not a creature in the meantime.
No, that is true. That would be better templating. I still think the upside is high enough here that it's pretty good.
It is kind of it wouldn't work with this templating if it was a creature. So that makes sense. Yeah.
That brings us to the last card of our review,
Whoa.
which is, very appropriately, the Ooze. Henry.
The Ooze is a 2-mana legendary artifact with whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it leaves the battlefield, create a mutagen token for each +1/+1 counter on it. And tap, exile a card from a graveyard, create a mutagen token.
Agatha's Soul Ozolith.
Yeah, this seems very strong. It is 2-mana artifact. It is 2-mana graveyard hate, which means that you have to be wanting its primary effect to be playing it. But you play it in Scales. You could play it. I don't know if this goes into food. I think there's probably not enough counters on this to be worth it. But maybe it is because it makes a game object every single time. I've been enjoying playing Agatha's Soul Cauldron in Ascendancy and enjoying the fact that you can untap that with Minamo. And I'm a big fan of legendary artifacts that you can untap with Minamo. Not that that'll come up much, but I think that it's something you should consider if you choose to play it. I think this card will be strong, making a lot of artifact tokens when, actually, now that I think about it, playing this with Ravager, sack your Ravager, make a huge amount of the artifact tokens.
The primary use I think of this card is in Scales. It's really, really crazy. Imagine playing it alongside 2 the card we talked about earlier that makes all your mutagen tokens cost 0 to activate.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really crazy there, but I also think it's just a pretty decent sideboard card in a deck that incidentally cares about counters or making artifact tokens like food
Yeah.
or other decks. Like, I genuinely am considering this as a sideboard option in like Academy decks because it's like a Relic of Progenitor style, like exile, and in fact this exile target card, very nice. Doesn't need to be like a creature or anything like Soul Cauldron. And it just is going to make you artifacts turn over turn. Also, the fact that it plays very nicely where you've had a grindy game and you've exiled a bunch of stuff from your opponent's graveyard. You put all your mutagens on a creature, you have a backup creature, and you get to kind of attack them with that. So it can do the like unlicensed curse thing, albeit a bit slower, of like it's also the win condition. It just needs anything to wear the counters, and then ideally a backup so the counters go there.
Yeah, I think this card's very strong.
Yeah.
Actually, you don't need the backup. It's just the Ozolith. But the fact that it's like, no, you just always get the counters back.
You just
in
have
a
to pay
slow
for them
form.
somehow.
You just have to pay for them, but even if they kill the thing you put the counters on, you're not like net down counters.
Yeah, no, the more I think about this card, the more strong I think this is.
Yeah, like I don't know if it for sure we'll see a lot of sideboard play, but I think it has quite a lot of potential as the sideboard card too.
Yeah, makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, that is it for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There were honestly way more cards to talk about than I thought of when we thought of making this set review. Thank you, Henry, for coming up with a lot of niche ideas.
I doubled the length of the list.
Sure did. Yeah, we hope you enjoyed listening to us ramble on for over 2 hours about these various cards. We hope to do it again for Strixhaven in 5 weeks or whatever it is until the next spoiler season.
I love that.
We'll hopefully have the next one out before people get their hands on the cards. But this came together very last minute. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
I hope that people will hear our theorizing about where cards might see play, and I hope that will inspire them to take a little look at maybe brewing up something themselves.
Yeah, get brewing. There's a lot of cool stuff, particularly scales. Try more scales. I want to see scales game.
Highlander is a super open format that really rewards you understanding what's going on and understanding how you can make something new that is strong into what you're playing against. And there are a ton of cards with this set that enable you to try something that wasn't really that viable before. So have fun. It's as much as I know there's all these weird turtle cards on the screens, like the cards mechanically look very fun to play. And that's what I care about mostly.
Yeah. Right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Have a good one.